Yeah, yeah. Grand rising to the gods and goddesses. You need to remind motherfuckers what it is, huh? I think I need to remind cats what it is for real. Yeah, they forgetting who it is and what it's about. Let's go.
It's the go.
Yeah, y'all forgetting it's the motherfucking golden cut that motherfucker. Yeah.
I'm a wild Indian, you know I go crazy. Man, it forget to be aboriginal. 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 Man, it forget to be aboriginal.
Actions ain't the same no more. Don't give a fuck about they name no more.
Man, it forget to be aboriginal. 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 I'm from the hood. I'm still waking up my people.
That's right.
When it comes to fashion, the whole world wanna be like us. How you gonna repeat that? Man, it forget to be aboriginal. 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 When it comes to music, the whole world wanna be like us.
You goddamn right. If y'all forgot who it was, the golden Kuttack motherfucker.
You killing them.
Let's go. Good morning. Happy Friday, motherfuckers. Let's go. Yeah. Hit it, pop up in here. Yeah. Early in the morning, acting like a goddamn idiot. Hey, brown liquor, no ice. Can't let them know, nigga. Fuck your couch, bitch. Good morning. Happy Friday, y'all. Let's
Good
get
morning. I'm blowing on some dark ass crazy shit. Back to back, joints to the face shit. Joints to the face shit. Dolomite getting high in the spaceship. Early morning, back to the basics.
That's right.
Hurry up, cause I gotta make a movie now. So many episodes, they telling me it's movie time. Fuck cameras, ain't none of that fake shit. I'm trying to touch a 50 for breakfast. 50 for breakfast. To the heart, niggas know how I take shit. Get out the way before you be on the waiting list. I lost my brother, ain't with none of that snake shit. I ice you while I'm smoking on well piss. I'd rather hear money counted than shell spits. We took the way for a day to the metal split. Full speed ain't with none of that snail shit. Still, you want some of this well spit.
well spit, goddamn it. Heavyweight, man. Big whale and a small fire, goddamn it. Motherfucker, all these little bitches, boy, they gon' get flipped when a well spit. Don't get flipped when a well flip. Small fire, you know what I'm saying? Fuck with a big whale. Kansas City whale, Midwest whale, Arthur style, goddamn. Arthur style.
Good morning.
Yo,
I'm up before all of the birds is. Breaking down a blunt of that well piss. Shit, and I don't fuck around with your shellfish. Cause y'all gon' get flipped when the well flip. Every ghetto, you gon' hit me with a money man. Young bitters at the spizzle with 100 dimes. No flashing, it's all for protection. To keep the snakes away from their section. That's right. How much? And ain't none of that guessing. Recount it before we leave from the session. Smoking Keisha with some wealth from the west end. We switch a deal right at the west end. That's right. Smith & Wesson, good your blips going clean through. I'm downtown Kansas City, making main moves. 5-4 and ain't none of them reckless. Switch up the deal right before breakfast. 4 and ain't none of them reckless. Switch up the deal right before breakfast. 5-4 and ain't none of them reckless. Switch up the deal right before breakfast.
yeah. What? Yes. Let's get it, man. Shout out to the GOAT.
You killing them.
I hope y'all doing well, man. God damn it. We out here, nigga. Let's get it.
I don't get along with niggas, I get along with bitches. I'm affiliates with gangsters, I don't conversate with snitches. Only move with the fam, we congregate for business. Only thing we got in common is to concentrate on riches. Somebody said we got it, confiscate the witness. Make $100,000 working out at Planet Fitness. Black body said we got it, confiscate the witness. Make $100,000 working out at Planet Fitness. Black somebody said we got it, confiscate the witness. Make $100,000 working out at Planet Fitness. Black ball in my city, keeping it the trillest. So the hate the world record gone, put them in the killers. If you're real, then you're fake. If you're fake, then you the realest. They done turn the game around, so now they celebrate the snitches. Yeah, I run around with that Drake, cause these niggas is vicious. Yeah, clean a nigga house and they won't even do the dishes. These bitches act like niggas, niggas act like bitches. All these bitches ready to fight, these niggas getting told bitches. They ain't imitate disrespecting dead people in their songs and making disses. I don't get along with niggas, I get along with bitches. I'm affiliates with gangsters, I don't conversate with snitches. Only move with the fam, we congregate for business. Only thing we got in common is to concentrate on riches. Somebody said we got it, confiscate the witness. Make $100,000 working out at Planet Fitness. Black ball in my city, keeping it the trillest. So the world record gone, put them in the Guinness. I can only be me, only God be my witness. Did some shit when I was young, I had to ask him for forgiveness. Been betrayed by my family, friends who turned snitches. I have yet to met a woman who didn't love to burn bitches. Sometime when I was young, I ain't get no visits. I was looking for the love words and I must have missed it. I ain't going back and forth, cause I ain't playing tennis. I've been flossing since a young nigga, so I ain't paying tennis. Use the kitchen like a lab, but I ain't playing chemist. So to get it till it's done, I ain't never saying finish. So whatever's been diminished, always be replenished. Really got it out the mud, everything I do authentic. I don't get along with niggas, I get along with bitches. I'm affiliates with gangsters, I don't conversate with snitches. Only move with the fam, we congregate for business. Only thing we got in common is to concentrate on riches. Somebody said we got it, confiscate the witness. Take $100,000 working out at Planet Fitness. Black ball in my city, keeping it the trillest. So the hate the world record gone, put them in the Guinness. Get along with niggas, get along with bitches. I'm affiliates with gangsters, I don't conversate with snitches. Only move with the fam, we congregate for business. Only thing we got in common is to concentrate on riches. Somebody said we got it, confiscate the witness. $100,000 working out at Planet Fitness. Black ball in my city, keeping it the trillest. So the hate the world record gone, put them in the Guinness.
Yo, man, shout out to everybody. Happy Friday. Hey, man, how y'all doing out there? Yeah, I see Captain, I see Art Brown, Boss, everybody, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's early, man. I'm a little late. But, man, I'm having to run these kids to school and shit. You know what I'm saying? So I had to come back and get all in the mode. Hey, that's my shit right there. Hey, let's go.
Yeah. Me and my tribe of Aquaman, so what's happening? So what's women in all I talk the line, so what's happening? Me and my tribe of Aquaman, so what's happening? So what's women in all I talk the line, so what's happening? Me and my tribe of Aquaman, so what's happening? So what's women in all I talk the line, so what's happening? My ancestors really like you touch the line, so what's happening? We original, y'all get them on y'all line. I do this for my niche, my niche, my niche, my niche. Oh yeah, niche, my niche, my niche. I do this for my niche, my niche, my niche, my niche, my niche, my niche. I do this for my niche. Should've left me where I was, cause I ain't never scared. Took that little ice off my neck for this girl kid. My nation, my niche, someone girl said. Real Americans still creep blood, we third bread. I'm like, let my people go and just take me instead. When it's red or blue pill, I'm only choosing red. I'ma always choose my people, you can keep that bread. Our government owe $1 trillion. you can keep that bread. It's one thing Jim Crow was showing me. I don't want no white folks ruling over me. I don't want no politicians ruling over me. I don't want no po-po ruling over me. Only somebody that's like me gon' treat me like me. I'm Iron Cherokee, Chief and Dr. G.L.E. I'm still a G like PST. You might not be as G as me. You think you free, but you need remedy to be as fist. I'm from the hood, I'm still waking up my people. They got it good, they still hating on my people. When it comes to fashion, the whole world wanna be like us. When it comes to music, the whole world wanna be like us. When it comes to dancing, the whole world wanna be like us. Foreigners are doing everything, trying to weaken us. Of course, y'all can't fuck with us. Rhythm know we killing y'all. Anything involve a ball. Mentally, we figured out the cosmos. After all, getting shit, we smashing y'all. It's time to take the asking y'all rights by blood. After all, Vatican and the Smithsonian got all our shit. Artifacts and relics still keeping us away from it. When they say that was a long time ago, that's racist shit. Y'all holding like you stolen shit. We don't need y'all holding it. Reverse engineering our technology, controlling it. Gave it everything you got, but you can't put no soul in it.
That's right.
Go see the new Matrix, cause I'm living it. Everything is not what it seems, but I'm killing it. Can you afford to pay attention who you living with? Now they trying to mandatory backs, but is you getting it? Fall back off my niche, I'm peeping y'all tactics. This ain't no Earth war, this shit is galactics. Goddesses and gods warming up like practice. We gon' put arrows on your chest like that. Mongoloids ain't style like us, them fake natives ain't wild like us. They ain't got a soul, destiny as a child like us. Nobody pop wild like us, nobody peace pop like us. Boxing y'all can't fight like us, nobody lost they right like us. Wake them up, I'm in the way. Say too much, I'm in the way. They trying to kill us anyway, so listen what I'm finna say. Everybody, I keep you raised y'all anyway. This is the finna say. Everybody ain't here to stay. Issue with us or against us, ain't no in between. I'm a non-ether being, not a human being.
Not a human being.
All my allies, what to do. Renegade got tricked for days. Be careful, I advise you to. Yeah, my tribe of upper mind, so what's happening? Yeah, several minutes, y'all cross the line, so what's happening? Yeah, my tribe of upper mind, so what's happening? Yeah, several minutes, y'all cross the line, so what's happening? Yeah, my tribe of upper mind, so what's happening? Yeah, several minutes, y'all cross the line, so what's happening? My ancestors really like you cross the line, so what's happening? We original, y'all DM on y'all line. I do this for my niche, my niche, my niche, my niche. Oh yeah, niche, my niche, my niche. I do this for my niche, my niche, my niche, my niche, my niche, my niche, my niche. I do this for my niche.
And then I woke up the next day and got so gabagool. Keep waking up, keep getting different types of gabagool. Even got some gabagool from others we do. Woke up this morning, I got some gabagool. And then I woke up the next day and got some gabagool. Keep waking up, keep getting different types of gabagool. Even got some gabagool from others we do. Woke up this morning, got some gabagool. And then I woke up the next day and got some gabagool. This morning, woke up this morning, some gabagool. Woke up this morning, some gabagool. And then I woke up the next day and got some gabagool. Keep waking up, keep getting different types of gabagool. Even got some gabagool from others we do.
You killing them.
I hope y'all doing well out there. Hope y'all doing well. I'm gonna do one more. Let me get one more. Let me get one more real quick. Let me see, man. What I'm gonna do? Hey.
Freely, I've got to live freely. The map unfolding, I'm molding into what I was born to be, and that is just to be loving me. The gunboat on my eye, and now it filled my lips so long it filled. I'm manifested, the vision is real, and now I know how it feels. It feels like you got me feeling. You got me feeling. Well.
Yeah, man. Shout out to y'all, man. Hey, man, I like this joint, though, man. But I don't like that music, so I got to play that shit right, man. I got to play that shit right. Let's get it, man. Here we go. Hey, man, shout out to the ladies, man. This is what it is. Yeah, let's go. It's the GOAT. Kuttack. Kutty UnKutt. Let's get it. Fuck your couch, bitch.
Freely, I've got to live freely. The map unfolding, I'm molding into born to be, and that is just to be loving me. The gunboat on my eye, I now rebuild my lips. I'm manifested, the vision is real, and now I know how it feels. It feels like you got me feeling. You feeling like you got me feeling. Well, be me. Be me. I could care less about another say about the way I talk, the way I dress. Yet baby, all that comedy. Then they try to stop me from doing what I was destined to do. I can't apologize for the creator making me do all this. I'm a real gifted chick when it comes to being naive. Stay true to the game, baby. Papa, they got me feeling they feeling like Papa, they got me feeling. You're killing them.
let's get to my shit, man. Let's get to my shit. Let's go one time. Hey, what? Shout out to Dre Cobbs, goddammit. Hey, that's right. Hold up, man. Let me look at this, man. Let me see who's up in here. Shout out to Hebrew, the Duke of the Great Lakes. We got Ghetto Town Clinic. You know what I'm talking about? We got Art Brown, you know what I'm saying? Sweet Reed, you know what I'm saying? The Brent. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the guys who got it, man. Yeah, This is my shit right here.
I'm apply pressure. I'ma dissect you. Here's the lecture. I'm the professor of the X-Man. I let my mind expand. I make him give it up on the left hand. With the right, I smack a lot of his spray bands. I told you I'm godly. You know what I do to beef? I leave it charred me. You got to pause me. You know how my bars be. And part C, God D. I be out somewhere with the palm trees, catching a nice breeze, taking the toe into sand all on my Nikes. Run up on him, he might squeeze 2, 2, 3s, bring out eulogies. It ain't a question between you and me. You got her, yeah. 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 Eulogies. It ain't a question between you and me. You got her, yeah. You got her, yeah. You got her, yeah. Between you and me. You got her, yeah. 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 You know I write with a potent pen. I show my growth and I'm focusing in. I'm like Jansen coming out the bullpen. 1, 2, 3 and this game over. Say your prayer, get your 4-week clover. I'ma put the whole city on my shoulder. Get in my way, I'ma turn you to a poster. I'm tapped in. My power is solar. My destiny, I'm the soul controller. Every beat of every bar, hitting homers, putting whack rappers in comas. You smell my aroma. That's 81 haze.
Well, hold on.
What?
Yeah.
I was turned up, slapping down the block. 2-tone folk door with the big block. Folks sit on me, nigga, get your shit shot. I was catching wops, no face rock. Looking super debonair in my apparel. You know, bitch, feeding me drinks like I'm feral. Better leave me alone like Will Darrell. Or you ain't a book now, better. Seen a nigga get beat to the bone, man. I was like, damn, what did he do? Man, I'm old school like Black Planet and Yahoo. Eastboro grew up going to the food court. I was... Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to headshot shit. You don't need a vest. I cross me a nigga, no full court press. Hit you with that 4-5, you gon' rest up. Why family can and the rest dead? A couple bands for a headstone. Man, leave me alone like Little Daryl. Keep playing, you gon' end up looking down a pump barrel. Put hoes all through your hole. Well, hell, slow slapping on the block. Yeah, I'm on that go with a big clock. 2-tone folk door with the big clock. Folks, tell me, need your shit. Slapping on the block. Slapping on the block.
Hey, slide down the block.
I was out in the rockin' a champagne, putting in gas like I'm training. Niggas soft like a teddy bear. I be everywhere, you ain't never there. Like pull up on a nigga in that cavalier. I was in the land, I was watching the Browns. I was in the land, I was watching LeBron. Nigga, you don't want to smoke, I'll pop off. I run through your city like sip it off. Try to put your hand on me, I'm gonna let off. Going hard in the paint, I'm gonna let up. Slipping on the black, getting let up.
Hey, man, shout out to the gods and goddesses. Hey. Yeah, everybody put your hands in the air. Hey, man, y'all crazy, man. We out here, man. We out here. Shout out to Drake Cobbs, man. Shout out to everybody I played today. Yo. Yeah. Shout out to y'all, man. Happy Friday. Friday. Weekend day. Hope you guys are doing well. Lolita's in the house. Shout out to the goddess. Shout out to the gods and the goddesses. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Let's get this crack. All right, man. Let's get this cracking. Let's get it first. Let's go to the samurai. Shout out to the samurai. Here we go.
What's up? It's Cinema Shogun here, and this is one of those late night videos. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're one of my late nighters, let me know down in the comments below. But anyways, I have some breaking news for you all. There was just an explosion in New York City that caused a temporary power outage, and reportedly, people are stuck on the subway and people are trapped in elevators. And now there are videos surfacing of what appears to be smoke billowing out of a power plant in Brooklyn, New York. I want to go ahead and dive into this article that provides us with a little bit more information. Black smoke is seen coming from a Con Ed plant in Brooklyn as power outages were seen across the city. This happened after midnight on Friday, and footage captured shows plumes of smoke spreading from the facility. The New York Fire Department was quickly on the scene, and there is currently an investigation into the matter. Commuters have been stuck on the subway for over 20 minutes while others are trapped on elevators. Con Edison has said it is currently investigating the issue, and there is very little information about the issue out there at this moment. Residents across New York City, though, complained about the brief power cut, with most left confused about the power outage. Multiple people claimed to hear an explosion from the power plant, while others felt a rumble throughout their apartments. The fire department responded to multiple reports of power outages and people stuck in elevators. We don't have a single address that we can narrow it down to. There has been reports and calls at various locations throughout the city. Some commuters were held on the subway for around 20 minutes during the power outage without any announcements at all. All elevators and escalators at Grand Central Station were put out of service during the ongoing power issue, and the fire department is currently trying to get several citizens out of elevators in Grand Central Station as we speak. Lights have been flickering throughout the neighborhoods, including in Lower Manhattan, the Upper East Side, Bed-Stuy, downtown Brooklyn, and Long Island City. My mom and I were just talking in the kitchen, and the lights just went out. We both just stared at each other and wondered what the hell happened. Thanks for scaring the hell out of me, Con Ed. So a lot of these people in New York are freaking out because living where I live, dealing with the amount of storms we deal with down here in the South, power outages aren't really a big deal. Power outages happen pretty often. But when you have a power outage in a city like NYC, man, go look at some of the famous power outages in NYC throughout history. All hell breaks loose, okay? these people go absolutely nutso during blackouts. And you know, it's already dangerous enough in big cities such as New York City. So imagine how much more dangerous it gets, you know, when there's no power anywhere. But as far as this explosion goes, I know everyone's on the edge of their seats right now because everyone is expecting something. And we have all of these warnings from the FBI and warnings from the Department of Homeland Security, like I've been talking about on previous videos on my channel. But right now, there's no real information out there. We don't know if this was something like that. I think it's probably just some type of technical issue. I don't think this is an attack, but a lot of people are scared right now, and rightfully so, because we have, you know, the FBI and stuff warning people every day that something's bad's going to happen, and then you have an explosion in NYC with the, you know, power going out all throughout the city, people stuck in elevators, people stuck in the subway. You know, a chaotic situation, but hey,
slap power God.
It's a crazy start to what's probably going to be
God.
a very crazy weekend. But let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. If you're feeling generous, you can drop a super.
Yeah, man, shit going down, 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 down. Yes. Let me get my other one real quick. Where's that? Yep.
Show gun here, and yesterday the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security put out this warning, a warning for the holiday season, that they feel like there is a heightened threat of attacks at Christmas events, tree lighting parties, Christmas parades, and of course the random protests that are also happening throughout our city streets across America. Now, it's become kind of alarming to me at this point, because over the last couple of months, it's just been overwhelming, the amount of warnings that are coming in. Every other day, the FBI is warning about something. The Department of Homeland Security is warning about something. We got the UK warning us of attacks. You got the UK warning Canada that something's going to happen. It seems like every other day, it's just a constant influx of, oh my God, something's going to happen. There's a potential attack. There's this. And listen, I know that the media likes to rile people up. I get it. Trust me, we talk about that type of stuff all the time. But at this point, I can't help but feel like something's going to happen. These warnings, you know, at first it's like, yeah, it's just a warning, whatever. But now it kind of feels like they're hammering it in our head. You know, one warning, fine. Two warnings, fine. We've had, over 30, 40 warnings in the past couple of months. Every other day there's something new. And it really feels like they're hammering it in our head. Hey, something's going to happen. We're not going to tell you when. We're not going to tell you where, but something's going to happen. At least that's how it feels to me. And, you know, last night I made a video reporting to you all that these warnings were coming through. And I wake up this morning and they're talking about it on the news again. Let's go ahead and roll this clip, and then I'll be right back with more.
Welcome back. The FBI, Homeland Security, and the National Counterterrorism Center urging Americans to remain vigilant as we head into the holiday season.
They're concerned that lone attackers could target large public gatherings. Kelsey Kernstein is here with the details. Kelsey, break this one down for us.
Yeah, Mark and Adrian, good morning. So the feds are saying that hate crimes are actually on the rise across the nation, and that active shooter and bomb threats have increased since the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas war. The memo states that these lone wolf aggressors, they may target holiday events, religious gatherings organized by Jewish, Muslim, and Arab communities. And while the feds say that the announcement is not related to any specific plot or activity, we reached out to CIA and FBI agent Tracy Walder, who says that we could see scenes of violence escalate across the country as the war continues in Israel.
If you are at a public event and you don't feel comfortable with the amount, little or too much, of security that's there, then I would probably leave that event. Because if you are not comfortable by the backstops that they've put into place to try right, to maintain a sense of security, then I think that that's an event that you shouldn't go to.
We also reached out to the FBI to ask them what they're doing to ensure people's safety at holiday events. And they say that they're working closely with local law enforcement agencies to determine if any potential threats are in fact credible. And then they will take the necessary action to investigate. Adrian.
All right. Thank you very much, Kelsey. We all need to have our head on the
The
swivel.
most frustrating and kind of frightening, I guess, part of this all is that I fully believe that we're not seeing them go this hard to warn everybody for no reason. They keep saying, oh, we don't have any specific threats. There's nothing specific, you know, it's nothing really to it, but hey, warning guys, something may happen, something may happen. Oh, don't worry, nothing to it. And it's like, what? How can you be so persistent? They are persistently putting out warnings every day, every other day. Hey, there's a warning for this event. Hey, you better be careful at this event. Every single day, yet you say, oh, we don't have any threats, any specific threats. We don't have any, we don't know of anything that's being planned. The reason they're putting out these warnings is because there are very specific threats coming through. And there have been for a while. I mean, also, we know that our southern border is wide open. So any of our enemies can just pour right into our country and pull something crazy. But like I've said before, I'm not as worried about a foreign threat. I'm more worried about people from right here in America. Because a lot of people right here in America have flipped their wig and they hate America, or at least they think they hate America more than any of our enemies. But as all of this is playing out, the FBI has put out a warning for basically every major city in America. The FBI and DHS issued a public service announcement warning of potential threats in the U.S. during the winter as the conflict between Israel and Hamas continues. Read it here. And report suspicious activity to 1-800-CALL-FBI. Threat of violence likely heightened throughout winter. Summary. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and Department of Homeland Security are issuing this public service announcement to highlight potential threats in the United States from a variety of actors during the winter season. This is an update to the 25th of October and 10th of October FBI and DHS public service announcements. FBI and DHS also continue to share information with our law enforcement partners. Now, as you see, this same public service announcement, the same warning went out all over the place. Pittsburgh, Dallas, Atlanta, any big city that you can think of. And as they say right here, this is an update to the warnings that they already put out on the 25th of October and the 10th of October. So like I said, we're getting a lot of warnings over the last couple of months, and they didn't even mention the warnings that they put out ahead of Thanksgiving. But these little public service announcements are going out everywhere. And my question is, like, what do you expect us to do with this? That's what you really have to think about. What do you expect American citizens to do with this information? Are we supposed to band together like the freaking Expendables and look for possible threats? What are we supposed to do? You're constantly putting out these warnings, but you're not telling us what we should be looking for. You're not really telling us what we should be worried about. You're just telling us, hey, something is probably going to happen and you need to be scared. You need to be worried. It's like, are we going to see this public service announcement and we're going to run into the middle of our neighborhood, gather all the families together and come up with a plan? Like honestly. So one of the reasons why I feel like they're constantly, or at least now, they're putting out this warning. It's like they're making Americans afraid to celebrate your regular traditional holidays. You can't go out here and be comfortable celebrating Christmas. You can feel comfortable going out, blocking the roads, harassing people, praising Hamas, and shouting Allah Akbar or whatever the hell you want to do, but you can't feel comfortable at a Christmas parade. You can't feel safe taking your kid to sit on Santa's lap. That's the country that we're living in right now. And when you wonder, why am I so opposed to certain things? This is why. I haven't chosen a side when it comes to the Israel-Palestinian conflict, but I am fully against the protests and the violence that we're seeing in our streets in America. And when it gets to the point that because of a conflict overseas, because of certain people involved in that conflict, we here in America can't feel safe to celebrate Christmas, then it becomes an even bigger problem for people like me. Because people like me who are neutral, we're looking at what's happening in our country and we're realizing that there's only one side pushing this nonsense. There's only one side threatening violence and doing
This
all
shit
of this.
crazy.
It's only one. It's totally one-sided. The threats that the FBI have gotten, it's not coming from one side. It's all coming from the other side, basically. So at the end of the day, I'm hoping, folks, I'm hoping that I don't have to sit down and make any more videos like this, but it looks like this has just become a common trend. It's become a common trend at this point. And it just feels like we're working up to something big and something bad happening. And it's like they're planting the seeds out there. They're going ahead and letting people know. But also you have to keep in mind, the reality is, even though these public service announcements and warnings went out to cities across America, most people have no idea this is going on. There are thousands of you watching this video right now that had no idea that the FBI issued a public service announcement and warning for your city that you're living and sleeping in right now. So only the people who are paying the utmost attention are the ones who are catching these things. But all in all, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not going to live my life any differently. I don't think you guys should either. But let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. While you're down,
This shit crazy. It's getting real in the field, hard in the yard, boys. Getting cold out there. Better have a goddamn sweater. Better have a goddamn sweater. You know, hey, a lot of shit going on. It's a lot of shit going on. Let me see where I'm at here. Bam, bam. Bam, bam. Let me get this right. Bam, bam. This shit right. Bam, bam. Add to bam. Let me add that. Bow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then we got this. Let me add him. Bam. Let me look at this. Pop it up. Getting it locked and loaded real quick for the family and the tribe. Y'all know. We go here. Right. We'll go there. Then we'll go here. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah. I see you here. Great Lake, Grand Rising. I see you, yeah.
We released on Friday of last week, and basically what it was talking about is training, reality versus fantasy. And a lot of people, you know, they will, in the video what I talked about is a lot of people will focus on things content creators are doing that is content versus the reality of what someone would face. Now, there was a comment here. I'm going to read it to you and kind of address a few of these things. So the comment's coming from a veteran, and he says,
Yo, let me know. Let me know. Everything sound good and everything's going well, man. Shout out to each and every one of y'all. Happy Friday. Getting into this great weekend we're about to have. Let's get it.
So 80% of your viewers are just wannabe soldiers who have never served at all. Those people are just like the wannabe cops that buy police cruisers and drive around pretending they're making a difference. But after they see your superhero intro every video, that is what they think they need to do. At least veterans are making money training all these quote unquote heroes. We cleared the first room, deploy moon pies for our first sit rep snack time, and make sure you hydrate with your canteen full of chocolate milk. Hoorah. So first off, I'm not real sure why my intros always offend people, because they do apparently. They offend people. You know, the intro is just an intro. It's made to be entertaining, nothing more. But anyway, one thing I've noticed, you know, since being on social media, is like some of the most toxic comments and toxic people are veterans. They have a massive envy issue, jealousy issue, and you know they constantly.
Well,
I'm not the
you
only veteran
don't
that's ever said this, because I
say.
see a lot of veteran content creators say the same thing, whether they're Instagram creator, YouTuber, this and that. They get the most hate from veterans. Like, you would think leftists would give you the most hate, but it's almost veterans give you the most hate, but because of envy. You know, and you know, we had an influx of people serving during the global war on terrorism and things like that. But you know, I want to say this, is that being a veteran doesn't make you a superhero. Okay, it doesn't make you better than any other American. And if that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry, but it doesn't. The thing is there's lots of blue collar workers that actually make America run. Like, if it wasn't for these workers driving trucks to deliver food, you know, machinists making things, you know, engineers, you know, people doing road construction to make sure roads are well taken. I mean, people building homes.
This is a vet talking about vets. This is a veteran talking about vets, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. This is a veteran talking about vets, saying that they're some of the most paranoid people. Hey man, notice a lot of these motherfucking massive casualty events involve a lot of these so-called vets and veteran people who are toxic. That's what he's calling them, toxic veterans attacking civilians. Here we go.
Construction workers, you name it. Like, a lot of these jobs, they're not sexy, but they are what make America run, and they are needed. And people that do those jobs usually are very hardworking Americans. And we're not even talking about first responders, I mean, because obviously they do a ton as well. But you have regular Americans that every day that help America run, and they, you know, should be, you know, thanked for what they even do for our country. During my time in service, you know, you think I served this country, but you know, as I get older, it's like, or was I serving politicians or the military industrial complex or whatever? I don't feel good about a lot of those things because of what I know now versus what I knew then. But the thing is being a veteran, you shouldn't look down on other people that didn't serve, right? There are some people that didn't serve that could outshoot you, they could out PT you, they could outdo a lot of different things, military skill sets that you maybe were trained in. But to dog on people that want to be prepared, that want to live a prepared lifestyle, but just because they weren't a veteran is pretty crappy, to say the least. And then bagging on your fellow veterans because they're doing well, they're being successful in something that maybe you want to be successful in. The fact of the matter is that I couldn't be a doctor probably if I wanted to be. I don't have the intellect to do that. Does that make me a bad person or a loser? No, it's just not what I was made to do. And I think a lot of veterans, because some other veterans get online fame or success or whatever you call it, they get jealous. Well, maybe you're just not cut out to do that. That's not your thing. It's just like Tiger Woods is a great golfer. Does that mean he's a great instructor? There are some great instructors that would do horribly in competition with a great instructor. And I've known veterans that spec ops dudes, literal badasses that couldn't teach you for anything because they don't have the instructor ability. So just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're good at teaching it. And don't hate on your fellow veteran, man. Like I can't stand to see how much veteran on veteran hate there is. It's ridiculous. Like I want to support other veterans, you know, but over and over again we see this veteran hate, and we see these same veterans that hate other veterans. They also down civilians. Stop downing fellow Americans, right? Stop down in fellow veterans, especially people that see the same way you do, that have the same ideologies and principles as you do. That's why we're losing the battle, because Democrats don't do that. But people in the conservative realm love to fight each other for some reason and attack each other. We're going to keep losing if you do that. Anyhow, guys, I wanted to share this.
I wanted to share this. Why? Because he's complaining about his own people. You know what I'm saying? Veterans who are acting crazy. Then, you know what I'm saying? Let's the Caucasian variety, because those are the ones that's in the mass casualty events. That's what I see mostly. So I don't know, man. You know, and I don't know everything either. I don't believe nothing. I don't have no faith in nothing. So it is what it is. Let's get to the next. Look at this shit. This shit crazy.
Hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum.
Birleşime 20 dakika ara veriyorum.
Shout out to Officer Cole. You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, this crazy, man. Look at this, man. This wow.
This video is brought to you by Spot Bones. Great pick which talk on national TV. Challenge Turkish line clan. Pure Talk decided to challenge Turkish lawmaker. Decided to challenge the God of Israel on national TV. And as soon as he got done challenging the God of Israel, he died from a heart attack on the spot. You can't tell me that's a coincidence. That the man is talking crazy my God, Yahweh, and said that Israel will suffer the wrath of Allah and died.
Kurtulsanız vicdan azabından kurtulamayacaksınız. Vicdan azabından kurtulsanız tarihin azabından kurtulamayacaksınız. Tarihin azabından kurtulsanız Allah'ın gazabından kurtulamayacaksınız. Hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum.
Birleşime 20 dakika ara veriyorum.
Oh shit. That's crazy.
I would venture to say maybe this is one of those biblical examples where you find out which God is real, right?
Hey, man, I'm bringing y'all the world of craziness. This shit is crazy. Let's go. You can give me your thoughts. Here we go.
Spam folder or your junk folder or something like that. And then tomorrow morning, or the first, we do it Monday through Thursday. So on Monday morning, you'll get the newsletter at about 7 a.m. Eastern time. Once again, go to redacted.in in a London prison. While WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange sits in a London prison for the crime of committing journalism, 4 Americans are suing the CIA and Mike Pompeo, 2 lawyers and 2 American journalists, for spying on them when they met with Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy. There are growing signs this morning that this case will not be dismissed, that the judge in New York is going to allow this to move forward. This could be groundbreaking. This could be the major positive step, perhaps in getting Assange released from prison, perhaps a catalyst, if you will. Kevin Gostola is an excellent journalist who knows more about this, more about the Assange case than perhaps anyone. In fact, believe he's the only one that's really been covering this New York case, which is unbelievable to me. You think all of the major media would be covering this story. Of course, they're quiet on this story. He's also the author of the book Guilty of Journalism, the political case against Julian Assange. And Kevin joins us now. Kevin, great to see you, and thanks for your journalism.
Good to speak with you.
So am I putting too much on this case? I'm saying that I believe this is a big catalyst which could lead to major things happening in the Assange case. Can you walk us through it? Am I making too much of this, or is this a big deal, what this judge in New York looks like he might do here?
Well, first, I just want to emphasize that the core liberty that is being argued over in this case, when you travel abroad, does the U.S. government lose, or do you lose as an American, or do I lose as an American, the privacy rights that I have under the Constitution in the United States? Meaning, now that I've left the borders of the United States, can a government agency, intelligence, national security, or any government institution choose to violate those privacy rights? And particularly when I'm in other buildings that perhaps the US doesn't have full control over, and yet there are surveillance systems or other mechanisms for security that exist, which they could obtain information, video, audio, whatever, and maybe use them to investigate me. Do I lose my right to privacy because I've left the US? That's central to this, because we have 4 individuals, 2 journalists, 2 attorneys that met Julian Assange in the Ecuador embassy in London. There's evidence that people like them were singled out as priority targets by a private contractor named UC Global, run by David Morales. And David Morales is known to have gone to Las Vegas Sands, potentially, allegedly in the lawsuit, inked some kind of a behind-the-scenes agreement that allowed the CIA to allegedly outsource a spying operation to him, with somehow Sheldon Adelson being involved. Of course, he's now dead, does not exist anymore. But the allegations in this is that these individuals who tried to visit Julian Assange were targeted simply because they were there talking to Julian Assange. And there was some interest on the part of the CIA to monitor those people so they could use it to facilitate expelling Julian Assange from the embassy. And this case right now, we have not seen a dismissal from the judge. It's extraordinary. Oftentimes, allegations of spying or criminality by the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, they usually can enter a court and just invoke national security or state secrets privilege and say that there's no way that this could be litigated. But the judge in the Southern District of New York is allowing them to continue with this lawsuit at the moment.
So not dismissing it, this lawsuit continues. And I think what the judge has pointed out here, or appears to be by not dismissing it, is that there are allegations. These allegations need to be aired at trial. Like a judge can't just rule on these allegations. He doesn't know the facts. He doesn't know all of the back and forth. So a judge can't just, willy-nilly just dismiss this case. So this moves forward potentially to trial. And then, of course, we'll go through a discovery process. And hopefully we'll get to actually learn what the CIA was doing to these targeting of these Americans who were meeting with Julian Assange. And what do they allege? What do the plaintiffs allege in this case against Mike Pompeo and the CIA? What did they do to them when they went into the embassy that day?
They allege that by cooperating with this outfit called UC Global that was tasked with performing Ecuador's security, the contractors were passing along allegedly these audio and video feeds to intelligence agencies in the US, and the CIA is believed to have had access. And so they could do constant monitoring of Julian Assange and every person that was being visited. What happened when you visited Julian Assange was that you would go to a security checkpoint. It would be unlike going into a courthouse. However, it was a little bit more like visiting somebody in prison, because your belongings, your electronics, and other things were expected to be left with those security people. And then you would go into a room and you'd sit down and you'd meet with Julian Assange. Then when you come back, you'd get to pick up your property. What those individuals visiting Julian Assange did not know was that these contractors were making files on individuals who were considered priority targets. And in some cases, they were even taking apart their cell phones to take photographs of the physical structure of the phone so they could get something called an IMEI. It's an identification number that subscriber services use. It's highly invasive. Like if they have that number, it can be used for tracking and following your movements. I presume, especially since they can link it to whatever mobile provider is providing you your service. And they also took pictures of passports. And that's key, because taking pictures of your passports means that now they know that you're an American. So if someone's coming to the embassy who is Russian, or is, let's say, from Israel, or is from the United Kingdom, or is from some other country, well, then it's okay for the intelligence agencies to monitor them. But as far as the Constitution goes, at that point, they need to have some idea that this person is conspiring with Julian Assange, is plotting some kind of criminality when they enter that room with Julian Assange in order to target them outright, particularly if they're attorneys or journalists for a country that goes around as part of its image claiming that they support human rights and press freedom. Remember, this is a part of President Joe Biden's shtick and all the other officials under him. Well, to target those people, and then also for those officials under Donald Trump to do that when, again, many of these people use that as part of the U.S. image. We're supposed to be allegedly better than other countries, targeting Americans over in violation of their liberty. Well, that's something that during a trial is going to be argued over. And there's never been a case like this. I'll end my comment here by saying it's been acknowledged by the judge, the prosecutors, and the defense team, or I guess the people representing these individuals who were targeted. They're actually bringing a lawsuit, so they're not playing defense, but it feels like it because the CIA usually has the upper hand in these cases. But there's never been any case like this that you can point to in the history of the US. There are some cases that are similar that implicate NSA surveillance from over 10, 15 years ago, but there's nothing that involves people traveling abroad and being targeted in this manner at a diplomatic building.
Mike Pompeo, of course, one of the defendants in this case, which I find fascinating. Here's a guy that Stella Assange, of course, is very publicly pointed out has tried to assassinate Julian Assange, that Mike Pompeo, set to target and kill Julian Assange as part of the CIA hit on him. So this is fascinating. Has there been any response from their side, from Pompeo's side, as to their defense in this?
Their side is to say that Julian Assange was a wanted fugitive. So once you entered the embassy, you should have known that he was a national security target. And when you met him, you should have known that probably the United States government was targeting him since he was a national security target. But I don't think that's how our rights work. I don't believe that if I happen to meet with somebody who's under a criminal investigation, that I suddenly lose my right to freedoms, especially if the government can't prove that I'm engaged in some kind of crime or conspiracy with that individual. And at no point has the government suggested that these two attorneys or two journalists were involved in some kind of criminal conspiracy with Julian Assange. They're definitely not part of the case that's being pursued against him, which, just to be clear here in this interview, they are going after Julian Assange and have kept him in prison, in a maximum security prison in London called Belmarsh, for over 4 years because of the journalism that he engaged in back in 2010 and 2011. So they say no reasonable expectation of privacy, because that's the standard under the Fourth Amendment. And they weren't going to get a warrant. They claim they don't need a warrant for any surveillance of Americans that are going abroad. They basically say that if you didn't want to have your privacy violated, that you shouldn't have visited Julian Assange in the Ecuador embassy.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable precedent. So Americans have no expectation of privacy, that if they travel abroad, that an intelligence agency could swoop in and do whatever they want to them as they leave the United States. And it's not as if it's like Israeli intelligence. It's the United States intelligence doing it abroad in nefarious ways. How did these lawyers and journalists, when they came out of meeting with Assange, how did they know that their phones had been messed with? How did they discover that?
So many of these allegations come not from a U.S. media organization, which I think collectively the U.S. press has failed to follow up and investigate the way that people were treated who visited Julian Assange and how Assange, his family, lawyers, etc., were targeted. This comes from a Spanish newspaper called El País, which was a partner with WikiLeaks in covering the documents. But they obtained many of these files. I understand that they got some of them from attorneys for Assange because there were 2 whistleblowers from UC Global that had materials that they were able to provide. But there is a case that is being litigated in a Spanish criminal court right now against Pompeo and others who are implicated, the same group that we're talking about in this lawsuit in New York. And Julian Assange brought those claims, saying that his rights were violated. And that's running parallel to the extradition case in the United Kingdom right now, which has everyone's attention. And we're waiting on bated breath, wondering what's going to happen next. He could be extradited to the United States at any point in the first few months of 2024. And yet this could have ramifications for how the case against Julian Assange proceeds. Because if there's a ruling that there was a violation of privacy in that embassy, if there's more evidence brought out about this CIA-backed operation, that will be useful for Julian Assange's attorneys in that courtroom. And also, it's just worth noting, I don't think I'm suggesting that the judge is biased. I'm suggesting that he's fair-minded. But John Kodal is a remarkable individual because he has a backstory that includes a prior case involving WikiLeaks. One of the cases that he presided over was a case where the DNC and particularly Chair Tom Perez brought this lawsuit alleging that the Trump administration and WikiLeaks and Russian individuals were responsible for targeting the.
All right, look, I'm gonna open it up in about 30 minutes, right? And whoever wants to run the show, y'all let me know. I'll let you run the show. You know what I'm saying? Jonesy, I know that's right up Jonesy's alley. He like, man, yeah, let me run the show. Hey, man, shout out to y'all. Let's get it.
The DNC, when they published those emails, the Podesta emails or the Clinton campaign emails in 2016, and that they needed to be held accountable. And the judge determined that WikiLeaks had a right to publish hacked materials and that it was journalism, and journalism similar to the tradition of publishing classified information that newspapers engage in routinely. And that was part of his dismissal of Tom Perez and the DNC's ludicrous claims that they were bringing in New York. So all of this matters, in my opinion, to the defense that Julian Assange will put on if he's brought to the United States and put on trial in the Eastern District of Virginia, just outside of D.C.
I'll get you out of here on this, Kevin. Do you think that he's going to be extradited to the United States? And is this case against the CIA and Mike Pompeo perhaps the catalyst we need as champions of free speech and of journalism to have Julian Assange released from prison?
I see you.
Let me just share a parallel history that I think is instructive to how things could go forward or should go forward. We know that when President Richard Nixon was in office and Henry Kissinger was part of that administration, that they were upset that Daniel Ellsberg came forward and released the Pentagon Papers. There was a break-in. They targeted his psychiatrist's office because they did not like that he was sharing a study about what the military was saying behind closed doors about how the military operations in Vietnam were actually failing. They were failing to defeat the enemies that they were going after in Vietnam. And that eventually sunk the Espionage Act case that was brought against Daniel Ellsberg. He said himself up to his death that he was not found innocent. He just barely escaped being convicted. He was spared because the judge found that there was wrongdoing by the government. And so he was able to walk free. And people who are supporters of Assange have seen parallels, including Ellsberg prior to his death, who said, this is the kind of wrongdoing that should lead the Justice Department to dismiss the case with prejudice, because you can't bring a fair trial against Julian Assange. The very people who Julian Assange exposed or who are found to have been targeting him because they were vindictive and wanted to see him prosecuted are the ones who are going to have their thumbs on the scale, tipping it so that they are able to get the outcome that they desire. I'll just close on this point. The reason why Pompeo and others at the CIA allegedly wanted to conduct this spying operation that ensnared these Americans that we were talking about is because there were these Vault 7 materials that were published in 2017 that exposed some of the ways that the CIA engages in cyber warfare, offensive or defensive capabilities that they have, countering powerful countries, let's say like China or Russia.
Nah, you can't run the show from the chat. I'll pull you on up and you can run it. There we go.
Etc. And what they can do to plant malware and how they could get into Apple devices and other technology. And they were embarrassed. It's alleged that Mike Pompeo felt he could not face Donald Trump because WikiLeaks had now happened to the CIA. And that's where the vengeful attitude came from. And that's why he wrote about WikiLeaks in his memoir. Mike Pompeo did, talking about how Julian Assange was a rapist because he raped America of this information. Very out there language, very, very bombastic language. But that's why it is believable that they would go so far as to violate American civil liberties, and why it's important that the U.S. courts step in and say that your rights don't end at the U.S. border. U.S. agencies should have to respect your privacy and civil liberties when you travel abroad.
Well said. Well, we'll be watching this very closely, and we expect some perhaps big movement on the Assange case and the extradition, as you mentioned, in the next few months. And again, I'll get you out of here on this. When do we expect a ruling on this motion to dismiss and whether or not this case in New York will move forward?
Well, we're up against the holidays, so probably in the first week or second week of January, which means it could be in the same window of time that we learn about the extradition against Julian Assange.
Wow. 2024 is going to be the year of Julian Assange. And I think, we're going to see a lot of that. Kevin, great journalism on this. Thank you for being one of the lone voices in covering this story, one of the most important stories of our time. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
So thanks so much, Kevin. I encourage all of you to check out
Assange, they still on that motherfucker's back over there telling their secrets. These motherfuckers on his motherfucking back, boy. They don't not play no game. He's been locked up for a long ass time. So yeah, man. So hey, man, it is what it is. Let's get it.
Surprise that Congress approved the largest military. All right. Well, it's no surprise that Congress approved the largest military budget ever and the largest in the world. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Every year on this show, we tell you we are shocked and scandalized by it, but it gets bigger anyway. The House passed it weeks ago, and now the Senate passed it for sure. President Biden will pass it. So let's just take a quick look at the numbers and see what made it in and what made it out. This is the 2024 defense budget. It totals $886 billion.
That's on paper, by the way. Like,
yes.
What's the hundreds of billions that they don't tell you about?
Right. Information. This is 3% bigger from last year. And recall that the White House originally only asked for $842 billion.
Oh my God!
A little more for Ukraine, plus an extra $37 billion to modernize U.S. nuclear capabilities. We're going to look at the nuclear bit a little bit closer. But let's just first put this in some context. China this year approved a 7.2% increase to their defense budget. But even with that increase, they're still only at $224 billion per year on military spending. How, you might ask, and I wondered this too, I don't have an answer to this question. How does the world's largest military, with over 2 million enrolled members, how do they spend a quarter of what the U.S. spends? Just think about it. It's an existential question, if you will.
Well, when you have massively inflated prices and you have a private sector that literally charges through the nose for these weapons, when you have state manufacturing of weapons, it's a totally different animal.
Yes.
In your own country.
Right.
When you have state mobilization of your military, it's far cheaper. And, it's going to cost, we're going to charge you $45 million for this aircraft.
Yeah.
In the United States.
Right. We've seen inflated prices for screws,
Grand Rise,
for
brother.
software
Grand Rise.
updates, things like that. You're right. Even CBS News 60 Minutes covered that. Now, I want to show you this data. It comes from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, but some nice user laid it out in this graphic that I liked on Wikipedia. Almost all of the world's military spending comes from the West. The United States makes up a large portion of it, but here at the bottom it says other NATO as.
Yeah, Trump said that shit. He said, man, we've been paying for everybody's shit. And ain't nobody been paying a fair share. Y'all don't remember that when he first went up in there like, nah, y'all motherfuckers gonna have to start paying y'all fair share. And they was mad about that shit. I remember he did that. And here it is. They saying it after he gone. How much we are paying for everybody. The enemy's public. I see my guy, Keith Lamont, Grand Rising to the God. I see Girly Girl, Grand Rising sis to the goddess. Yeah, man. Let's get it.
As if the United States is not also paying into that. So I would say
other NATO.
For the United States, we're paying for about 90% of everything you see there that is blue. And then look at the rest of the world. It's like this. Now, are we winning with all of that military spending? I leave that to you. So
winning what? Right? Like, what are we exactly winning? Russia has literally beaten, I guess profits. Yeah. They've literally beat NATO. I mean, all of NATO has funneled all of these weapons into Ukraine, and Russia has beat all of them. So what exactly are they winning right now? It's a good question.
Right. Okay. So again, we told you about how China is increasing 7% and still keeping their numbers down. We're in debt. If we could just take the two shot here, we have this debt clock.
Yeah.
And so even with all of this debt, we are A-okay to increase our budget for a smaller military. Do those numbers make sense to you? Just, now, remember last year when we warned you that we could get close to a $1 trillion per year defense bill? We're almost there, right? Last year, we were absolutely scandalized that the budget was $847 billion, and that was $45 billion more than that administration had even asked. So here we go. They just keep magically saying, take more, we need it. Now, in July, when this spending package was proposed, we looked at some of the things that we thought, that's weird. Why is that in there? What's tucked into there? Now, back in July, the original HR 2670, which is the final military spending package, was 1,236 pages. The final bill that was voted on by the Senate, which will most likely be signed by the president, is twice that almost. It's 2,330 pages.
Senator Mike Lee tweeted a picture of this, them carting the giant bill into the Senate, into the Capitol building. They had to use a hand truck, massive hand truck, in order to push all of the boxes of this bill.
Yeah.
None of them are going to read this bill.
No.
None of them. Do you think President Biden is going to sit down and read a 2,330 page spending bill to decide whether or not he signs it? Of course he's not going to. And none of these senators are going to read it either.
Okay, but I had noted a few things back in July when we talked about it. So I wanted to go back and see what actually made it in there. So let's take a look. Heavy on the nuclear. We told you, remember, that they were going to add more to up the United States nuclear arsenal. In fact, they have made it such that there is a prohibition on the reduction of nuclear capabilities and ballistic missiles. I guess that's a double negative. It forbids the reduction, meaning we got to keep what we got and more, right? In July, we looked over this proposal that said that they wanted a space National Guard. Well, this actually did not make it in there. This was like a National Guard, which is a reserve component of the military, only for space. It was not formally enacted in the final bill. It was commissioned to study. So far, no Space Force National Guard. Does that surprise you? Just research on the possibility of a reserve space force. Okay. A draft of the bill also had budget for quantum computing. You remember this? We discussed what that would mean, whether it would mean like space-time continuum or fun stuff like that. Well, this too was only commissioned as a research project, so it's not currently a military priority. The draft bill also said that no defense department can spend money on critical race theory or committees for the environment. That did make it into the bill. This is the final bill. It says the tenets of critical race theory are antithetical to the merit-based all-volunteer military that has served the country with great distinction for the last 50 years. Now, this is interesting, right? Because it seems like, remember we talked about the ads around the military, that all of a sudden it's like we're kind of back and stronger and we're done with the bullshit?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do see that reflected in this bill. For instance, the draft bill had something established called sex-neutral physical standards, fitness standards. We showed you this. This was, again, in the draft. That did not make it in to this. So I don't know, someone went in there and said, nope, we need to actually be strong. In fact, they have beefed up the language around fitness standards. What do you think of that? Here's what we have. It says that nothing in this section prohibits the Army from using combat fitness tests. I assume that that's probably pretty hardcore. I've never taken it. And in fact, it says down below that certain commanders can require higher standards than what the Army already has. So are we getting back in shape? Is this what Clayton calls in superhero movies our training montage?
Maybe.
Where we're like, hey, no more critical race stuff, no more gender neutral fitness stuff. We got to stop this shit and be strong again.
Yeah, we've lowered our fitness standards for years.
Yeah.
We've allowed diversity and inclusivity and all of this stuff. And now things like they're going backwards on this, which is great. And wow, we can actually have physical fitness again in our United States military.
And so think of this. It says a commander can actually require more. Like the minimum push-ups is 100, but I'm not taking anyone into battle without 200. They can do that.
Good for them.
That's interesting.
But if they do that, they'll probably get fired. So they're probably going to just stick with the bare minimum. Because
it's written here. Why would they?
It's written there, but you know what the culture is like right now. The culture is such that if you push people in that way, you're not going to hit your recruitment standards.
Well,
if
let's
people
think
keep
about that.
failing through your recruitment standards, you keep John. We want to talk to you because we notice your outfit, your training. We need 50 recruits, and you keep only passing 25. That's going to be a problem. We need to hit our recruitment goals, and you're too tough. I can see this happening, but maybe not. Maybe things will change.
Okay, I think that, unless it's litigated, and do people often litigate failing out of the Army?
No, you can't. I mean, as far as I know, I don't think that's possible, but
right?
Yeah, they're protected.
Okay. Lastly, we had talked about the budget that was there to combat the fentanyl crisis. It does not, the new budget, hold any pharmaceutical companies accountable or say that we're breaking into their offices with armies. What it does say is that we are going to work with Mexico and Canada and monitor the southern border. So there is money for research and collaboration on the southern border. How much is that going to help? I don't know. It's basically work with them, come up with some plans. And finally, the bill specifically names the enemies it has their eyes on, a plan to mitigate disinformation from these two malign influence. It's Russia and China, as you can see there. There are many paragraphs about Russian interference in politics, despite the fact that the Justice Department debunked that in a special counsel just this year. We're still going after it. They want regular updates about maligned influence of Russia and China. Of course, we're not saying that this bill is unnecessary or that the military is superfluous or wasted energy. What we are saying is that this is clearly a rapid expansion of the military-industrial complex for a country that is increasing its debt ceiling so often. So you can read it for yourself. We link to it in the newsletter, the actual text, not the news about it. So if you have time to read 2,000 pages or you just have some things you're looking into, let me know in the chat what you think.
Yeah, 2,200 pages and $886 billion. Way to go, the United States, and sending billions to Ukraine and Israel while America's roads and bridges and infrastructure and southern border are pretty much wide open. So way to get your standards in place. And I'm sure President Biden will sign that. We've got more news to get to here on your Thursday. The area of Donetsk has been under attack over the past 72 hours. Patrick Lancaster is there. He's going to bring us a special report at the hospital there where civilians have been attacked once again. I'm using American-made HIMARS. So that's a surprise. It's being used, I guess, to target Russian forces. No, it's not. It's being used to hit civilian areas. So your U.S. tax dollars hard at work in Ukraine. We're also going to look at, too fat to fly. If you're very large, guess what? You'll get extra seats now on certain airlines. We'll tell you where that's happening. But first, recent events have made the entire economic environment more complex, especially factors such as the war, Fed rate hikes, now maybe Fed slashing rates over the next few months. That's great news. So it's very hard to predict what's happening in the economy right now. One thing though is for certain, it's still very expensive to live in the United States, and the cost of living has skyrocketed, and the cost of groceries and all of that. So what do you do with your money right now so that your US dollars aren't being flattened by inflation? Well, one thing you can do is actually put it in a cash sweep account. Our friends over at Moomoo have just rolled out a brand new savings account. It's called their cash sweep account with a 5.1% API. And it's federally backed by up to $1 million FDIC insured. So this is an account where your money sitting in cash can actually grow at 5.1% annualized return. And then if you want to use some of that cash to invest, you can do that all right inside of the Moomoo app. It's fantastic. So let's say you buy certain stocks and then you make a profit and then you sell them and your cash is sitting there in that account. Well, instead of it just sitting there earning nothing, now it can earn 5.1% interest. And plus, when you open your account, you'll get 15 free stocks when you sign up. Go to redacted.inc/Moomoo today. That's redacted.inc/Moomoo to get 15 free stocks when you sign up. And you get that 5.1% cash sweep account while your cash is just sitting there. So you can get those 15 free stocks and sell them and then put it right in that savings account. Totally up to you. Once again, it's redacted.inc/Moomoo. All right, well, the Russian city of Donetsk in former eastern Ukraine is once again under heavy attack by Ukrainian forces, targeting civilian infrastructure, residential buildings. In fact, a building in the heart of the city over the last few hours has been struck. This is the traffic center. This controls traffic lights. Like that's for civilians to be able to drive on roads. So a high value Russian target, apparently, but it's been hitting civilians. It's killed a number of civilians. And they've been doing this, of course, since 2014. Journalist Patrick Lancaster went to the hospital in Donetsk. He's back on the front lines. He spoke to doctors and victims and filed this special report for Redacted.
Hello, Redacted. I'm Patrick Lancaster, and right now we are back in the center of Donetsk. I've been gone from covering the situation here for a while, but now we're back because unfortunately in the last weeks there's been a huge uptake of attacks by Ukrainian forces on Donetsk, particularly civilian areas in the center and across the city. And many civilians have been killed and injured. Now, this includes normal civilians, children, firefighters, journalists. Several journalists have been injured in attacks here in Donetsk in the recent times, and across Donbass and beyond, several killed, unfortunately. But right now, behind me, you see the main trauma hospital of Donetsk, and we're here. We're gonna investigate what the situation is for the lucky ones, you could say, the lucky civilians who were not killed by this shelling by Ukrainian forces that were just injured. We're gonna see what their situation is. How many of them are injured? We're gonna talk to the head doctors here on the ground and find out all the real information, because you're not going to see it anywhere in the Western mainstream media. You see it here because they won't show you what's really happening here on the ground in Donetsk. Only we will. So now we're going to head in and show you the real situation. There's a special report for Redacted. New theme of the Ukrainian forces, it seems, is they will fire on a civilian area here in Donetsk, and then after first responders come, maybe sometimes 15 minutes, half an hour, or an hour even later, they'll fire. Ukraine will fire on the same location and target the first responders. Now, in this, we can even hear the shelling right now. In this 3 journalists at least have been injured. 1 minor has been killed just from these double taps, as they call it, which are war crimes. Targeting first responders. And we can hear the shells picking up today. Unfortunately, seems like things are starting to pick up. It's actually been quiet for the last day because of the weather. So the targeting of civilians is against the Geneva Convention, but specifically the targeting of these first responders. Now, there's been firefighters killed because of these double taps. Journalists injured. Civilians, children killed. Just I can't go on. But
man, see, it's where our money's going.
Здравствуйте.
Добрый день.
Можно представиться себя?
Заместитель директора Республиканского травматологического центра по хирургической работе Анаприенко Вадим Игоревич.
Можно сказать, как обстановка?
Обстановка по-прежнему в Донецке стабильно напряженная. Город продолжает обстреливаться. Вчера был обстрелян Ленинский район города Донецка. В настоящее время у нас на госпитализации находится 19 гражданских, которые получили травмы в результате обстрела жилых кварталов Донецка. Из них 7 детей. То есть снаряды, как я уже говорил, они не щадят никого, они не спрашивают ни пола, ни возрастов. Ну, к сожалению, у всех травмы тяжелые, минно-взрывная травма, это осколочные ранения. Ну, то есть травмы характерные для характера повреждения.
И как прогноз они?
Люди сейчас выздоравливают, идут на выздоровление, все больные прооперированы, всем оказана помощь необходимая, лечение люди получают в неполном объеме. Пациентам оказывается ургентная помощь, когда вот они сразу поступают, то есть в ургентном отделе. Другим пациентам оказывается помощь плановая в плановых операционных.
И можно поговорить?
Да, конечно, конечно.
Как думал, твое мнение, что нужно произошло сейчас? Мирные люди хватит за мирный район Донецк хватит под обстрел. Что нужно?
Ну, я вам как могу сказать, конечно же, я не военный, но дело в том, что, как я уже говорил, раньше обстреливались только прифронтовые районы города, это Петровский район, Куйбышевский, Кировский, Киевский районы, то сейчас обстреливается город весь абсолютно. То есть с появлением более мощного вооружения, более дальнобойной артиллерии, город обстреливается абсолютно весь. Вы знаете, что и территория нашего лечебного учреждения несколько раз подвергалась обстрелу. Как, например, 28 апреля было обстреляно наше лечебное учреждение. Чудом из пациентов никто не пострадал. 3 сотрудников получили ранения. Ну, в общем, как вам сказать, это либо, конечно же, все жители Донецка мечтают о том, чтобы эта война поскорее закончилась. И наши дети могли спокойно ходить, передвигаться по улицам.
И что вы думал, мирные люди на Западе, Европа, США, что они должны знать, что произошло в Донецке?
Вы знаете, мне кажется, что западному миру и США на нас глубоко наплевать. Это мое мнение.
Хорошо, спасибо большое.
Всего доброго, до свидания.
Меня зовут Патрик. Очень приятно. Нужно поговорить, да? Что произошло?
Мы пострадали от взрыва колокольчика, кассетной бомбы.
Да. Когда и где?
5 октября в городе Горловка обстреливался район Румянцева, и там были разбросаны колокольчики. Наш мальчик был в гостях.
Ага. И как обстановка сейчас?
Сейчас лучше, врачи стараются, все делают лучше. Он был у нас в плохом, в тяжелом состоянии, у нас брюшная полость, перерезана. Мы с хирургии приехали сразу лечить руки.
So это был кассетный шарик?
Да.
Ага.
Дети пострадали, там мальчик один погиб.
Не только он. Ага. И понимаю, от что это кассетная? Это какая оружие? Не знаю. Просто...
Они попадали, их там много было.
Мгм.
Они там помогали, показывали, где он что лежит.
Мгм. Понял.
Ну, сдетонировал, мальчик в руках. Девушка погиб.
Можно поговорить с
Конечно,
ним, да?
задавайте вопросы.
Еще раз, можно сказать, как этот момент был?
Ну, мы сидели, получается, мы играли в карты, а мой друг его, получается, взял в этот момент, начал записывать уже в кружок в соцсеть, и в этот момент он запался.
И это твой друг, это который погибший?
Это который погиб.
Ага. Знаю он долго?
Знал его долго, а он, я с ним с детства знал.
Можно военный, есть военный объект возле твоего дома?
Ну, вообще нет.
Ага. Но почему, как вы думаете, почему украинские войска стреляют на твой район?
Без понятия.
Как вы думаете, кто стреляет там?
Украина.
И почему вы думали это?
Они всегда по мирным жителям у нас стреляют. Если как точки объекта, да, все по окраинам. Где-то есть, может, среди районов, да, допустим, объекты какие-то, но они не стреляют в эти объекты, они стреляют там, где дети, и мы живем. Вот в том году у нас прям под квартиру прилетело, 9 этаж.
Может, они думали, твой район есть военный объект?
Нет, у нас нет. Вот Горловка, 5-й квартал, именно у нас район. Там нет.
Вообще не рядом?
Нет.
Здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. Что произошло?
Мы шли, услышали взрыв, выстрел со свистом, и прилетел нам под ноги снаряд.
И где это был?
Где я был? На улице мы с друзьями гуляли.
Пролетарский
район.
Ага.
Ну, там, получается, получил он минно-взрывные травмы руки правой, обеих ног. Это сейчас мы длительное время находимся уже на лечении здесь, но периодически домой. Но открой, покажи, что осталось. У нас было, это демонтировали сейчас аппарат со стопы.
Hey man, shout out to the God, the GOAT God.
It's the GOAT.
I just got out the shop. My bad, ladies and gentlemen. I just got out the shop. Let's get it.
About China attacking our cyber info.
We gotta go to the God code figure. Shout out to Code. Go, you coming in here, man. Take over the show, my nigga. Hey, I got a couple runs I gotta make, but it's all good. You know, I got some shit lined up, and you just let me know. I'll pull whatever, and I'll drop whatever. Let's get it.
Go Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know, I'm your humble host, the Yao Ming of Revolution, and we have a massive cyber attack here in America. We got to go over this story. Massive cyber attack we got to look into. Be sure to wipe your feet coming in the House of Revolution. That's hitting the like button. Let's put this in the algorithm. Subscribe to the platform if you're not subscribed. Revolutionary salute. We got to get into this story. It's not being covered. I seen one piece of news on it, but now I can bring you several pieces. Revolutionary salute, family. Let's get to this story.
Interestingly, over the weekend, when I was just sitting around after decorating my house for Christmas, nothing to do, I sat down and decided to watch a Netflix movie. And what they were promoting was this movie with Julia Roberts and Kevin Bacon and Ethan Hawke called Leave the World Behind. Now, I didn't find the movie particularly that great or interesting. I mean, it was entertaining enough for a lazy Sunday afternoon. But the movie was about a massive cyber attack that was hitting the United States that ultimately would lead to war. Spoiler alert, by the way. I guess I should have said that in advance just in case you're going to watch it, because it doesn't really tell you exactly. I maybe the previews do. I didn't watch any of the trailers. I just kind of turned on the movie and thought, okay, what's this? All right. You know, Kevin Bacon, Julia Roberts, sure. But it's about a massive cyber attack that is happening on the United States and right before a hot war. Well, then yesterday, Rumble was down in what was potentially a cyber attack, according to the CEO, Chris Pavlovski. This is what he tweeted out yesterday. He says, I can confirm that this attack has been unprecedented and has been happening since this weekend. I also suspect it's political, coming from activists and or organizations who want to censor our creators and related to January 6 videos being posted on Rumble. So this is what he says. Now, luckily, everything is restored. That's why we're back on tonight. We weren't on last night. We ended up doing a replay because we weren't really sure if we were going to be able to stream out. We weren't really sure what was going on, but luckily it did get fixed. So we're back here tonight. But Rumble did say that things were restored last night. They said services are slowly coming back to life, but still more work to do. We will keep everyone updated. And then they did say things have been 100% restored. Now, Zero Hedge ended up reporting that this happened after Rumble posted hours of January 6 footage. This is what Chris Pavlovski was saying. And this is from Zero Hedge saying last week it was revealed that the GOP-controlled Committee on House Administration's Subcommittee on Oversight had created a new Rumble channel to post hours of security footage from Capitol Police taken on January 6, 2021. So they decided to publish this onto Rumble, saying, quote, the first few videos were posted to the Rumble channel on December 5th. By the next day, the collection grew to 135 clips, each about 10 minutes long. The channel had nearly 700 followers on December 7th. And shortly after, Rumble was hit by a massive and seemingly organized attack that left people unable to upload or watch content. And then when it was restored, Rumble said a major thank you to our cybersecurity partners and our entire team. This was a massive learning experience that will only make us stronger. A big thank you to all the users and creators who have been incredibly patient with us during this time. So this is really bizarre, right? After they upload all this January 6 footage, there's an attack on the Rumble interface, the platform. We can't stream, viewers can't get into the system. So you can't get in to watch the January 6th footage. It's possible that it was a political group, a political activist group, or, I mean, who, you know, kind of think about who would have the motivation to not want you to see January 6th footage, who would benefit from that. So you could think about that. And then at the same time yesterday, this other ominous thing happened where I felt like I was living in that movie. News was coming out that Chinese hackers were disrupting U.S. infrastructure, including utilities and pipelines. Now, this was just like the movie. And in fact, some of the headlines even read that it was Iranian and Chinese, which is really just like the movie. Again, spoiler alert. Sorry about that. It's not that great of a movie. You're not missing out on much. You just, yeah, it's not like it's, but you know, anyway. Watch this from Fox News. They actually summarize what the accusations are against China and the cyber attacks that have been going on in various spots in the United States on U.S. infrastructure. Watch this.
Post reveals hackers affiliated with China's People's Liberation Army have infiltrated critical services here in the U.S.
Alexandra Hoff joins us now from our nation's capital. Alex, this is not good.
No, it's not. I mean, this infiltration appears to be part of a broader effort to insert chaos into our logistical systems. The information collected could then be weaponized if the U.S. and China were to become engaged directly in the Pacific. According to reporting from the Washington Post citing multiple U.S. and industry security officials, China's cyber army is invading critical U.S. services, like an attempt to break into the system behind Texas's independent power grid. Other victims include a water utility in Hawaii, a West Coast port, and at least one oil and gas pipeline. according to that report you're seeing there. Brendan Wells, executive director of the Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity Agency, told the Washington Post this, quote, "It is very clear that Chinese attempts to compromise critical infrastructure are in part to pre-position themselves to be able to disrupt or destroy that critical infrastructure in the event of a conflict, to either prevent the United States from being able to project power into Asia or to cause societal chaos inside the United States to affect our decision-making around a crisis." The report notes that over the past year, hackers affiliated with the People's Liberation Army in China have accessed the computer systems of about 24 critical entities.
Okay, so there it is. So they're saying that water utility in Hawaii, a major West Coast port, and at least one oil and gas pipeline, as well as Texas power grid, were attacked by what they say are Chinese cyber army. Now, the name of the group that they're attributing this to is called Volt Typhoon, which was first detected about a year ago by the U.S. government. Let's pull up this sheet. This is from CISA. So the cyber, what does CISA stand for again? That's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency.
That's
another one of
green.
those
I see you.
agencies.
Big dog, Billy OG.
This is the report that they put out May 24th of 2023. People's Republic of China state-sponsored cyber actor living off the land to evade detection. So what they mean by living off the land is that they're living inside of routers, and they say that they're kind of inside of
I hope y'all doing well.
Computer systems, and that's how they're hacking. Here's the thing: they don't have any solid, hard evidence that Volt Typhoon is Chinese-backed, state-sponsored. They might be Chinese nationals. They're saying that they are a state-sponsored cyber actor. They don't really have any clear evidence of that. So this is kind of going back to the Russia's doing all of this stuff to us. It's Russia, the government of Russia. They're infiltrating. They're hacking. There's what was that one group called? Cozy Bear or something along those lines, or Fancy. It was Fancy Bear. Fancy Bear is infiltrating our systems, and they're hacking us, and they're getting in for the election. And of course, here we are coming up to an election, and right around the same time, in fact,
I hope y'all doing well, man. Hey, happy Friday, everybody. You know what I'm saying? Happy Friday.
This Volt Typhoon attack from China this time. And they're coming in and they're going to meddle with our infrastructure, and they're going to meddle with our elections. Now it's possible, of course it's possible, that a foreign government would be trying to infiltrate and mess with our infrastructure in preparation for war. That's the narrative that's going on right now. They're saying, well, the reason why China is doing this is because they're wanting to take Taiwan. They know that the United States might go to the defense of Taiwan. Not really likely, as we've seen with everything else going on foreign policy-wise. People don't really have an appetite for that. But nonetheless, this is the narrative, that the U.S. would rush to Taiwan's aid, that we'd end up in a war with China. And so China's response to that, they're preparing by, they're going to infiltrate and attack our infrastructure. And that's the way that they're going to wage war. It won't be through typical warfare of missiles and guns and ships and blockades and all that. It would instead be this sort of cyber warfare thing, or a mixture, I suppose. So that's why they're saying China is doing this. But again, they have not been able to link. There's been no evidence linking Volt Typhoon to actually the government of China, or even truly linking Volt Typhoon to any of these cyber attacks. I'm sure they've got some data and some way of tracing, and so maybe they could get these guys, maybe they could pinpoint it a little bit. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, unless somebody cops up to it and actually owns it, it's really difficult to know who did it. But nonetheless, they're saying China did it. And the thing to just really watch out for on this is just this ramped up rhetoric that is trying to bait us into a war. Or, there's a variety of reasons of why this narrative would be coming out right now. One would be to get us to go along with the war in the future, that if we have to go to the defense of Taiwan, they can maybe use this as a reason, saying, well, it wasn't just Taiwan that's attacked, it's we're attacked as well. Look what China's doing to us. Same thing with the hot air balloons that were flying around the United States. What did those end up being? They ended up determining that it wasn't the Chinese government at all. There was in the beginning, they were saying, I think these are weather balloons. Then they started shooting them down, and a bunch of people on the right, a bunch of Republicans actually were saying, how dare Joe Biden? Of course, using any time anybody could use anything politically, they do. So they used it politically, and then it's recently come out, but of course it doesn't make headlines that, oh yeah, by the way, they were really nothing. It turns out there was no data collected. These were really just weather balloons or whatever. So there is this narrative though, and we have to watch out for it because we live in a warmongering country that really the military industrial complex loves to make a lot of money. And we seem to be in endless wars as the US infrastructure itself actually crumbles. Now here we are worrying about China attacking our cyber infrastructure when in reality our actual infrastructure is crumbling. We've got people addicted to fentanyl. We have a massive homeless crisis. We've got lots of problems, but instead we're just going to focus on continuing to go around the world in war after war after war. So one of the things to look out for is using this narrative for an actual hot war. Another thing to look out for is using this narrative to excuse whatever the outcome is for whatever the election, for this upcoming election. And whatever that outcome is, they're going to say China did it. China did it. It was China this time. Maybe China and Russia and Iran working together. So we've clearly got to go after all three. And somehow the people in Gaza did it too. I wouldn't be surprised if they lumped them all in together and said, so there you go. That is why we have to start World War III. I do want to play for you a clip from this movie because, again, I just watched this movie and it was like, how, sometimes when you watch movies from years ago, remember that movie? Was it Contagion? What was the one with Gwyneth Paltrow? And then if you watch it now, your jaw will drop. It's just like the pandemic. And it was like the pandemic played out on the big screen. And then suddenly we were living it in real life. And it was even a virus from China. It was like they just pulled it out of a movie. And then suddenly here I am watching this movie. And the very next day, all of these reports of cyber attack. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, here I am living in a movie again. For 3 days only, cbdistillery.com.
John here, are you ready for the massive cyber attack? Because it could have just started. China has now alleged to have attacked the U.S. infrastructure.
Hackers affiliated with China's People's Liberation Army have infiltrated critical services here in the U.S.
This is 1.1 million views in the last couple hours. Every mainstream media outlet is talking about this. What they're not talking about is this eerie connection between Barack Obama's movie that just came out. And I watched it last night. It's pretty shocking because everything that they were talking about in this movie is now happening today.
We are seeing ongoing cyber attacks across the country.
Something is happening, and I don't trust them.
You can't make this stuff up. In this video, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to show you exactly what's going on.
The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
I'm going to show you some pretty unbelievable dots and help you connect this because I believe something really big is coming. I think something massive is happening right now to America, and I think people need to get prepared for it. Please hit the like button. Hit the like button. YouTube will share this content to educate more people about what's really going on in America. And if you'd like to fix your credit, we'd love to help you at my company, greatcreditfast.com. That's greatcreditfast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative item under credit report, go to greatcreditfast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free strategy session. Take a look at this. So, Washington Post came out. China's cyber army is invading critical U.S. services. Came out this morning, right? This is crazy. So China has made its way to critical American cyber infrastructure without being detected for over a year. The known targets include water utility in Hawaii, a port in the U.S. West Coast, and an oil and gas pipeline. The goal is for China to leverage a position over the United States to create chaos, cause panic, and disrupt logistics. Well, the new movie that came out, in this movie is right here, The Apocalypse and Leaving the World Behind. In this movie, it says either China or Korea had attacked.
I see you none of your business. I see you in this.
Really big.
Hey, grand rising to the goddesses.
And now here we are, right? Now
and you the Chief Holiday's gonna come in and take over the show.
Here. You have to ask yourself, are we walking into something really, really big? Because some of the most powerful, business leaders, CEOs, billionaires, really wealthy people are all saying the same thing. that a massive cyber attack is incoming and it's going to change everything. So when you look at this, like for example, right here, it says China's cyber army infiltrated the U.S. U.S. officials and cybersecurity experts warn
Shout out to Cole Picker TV, man. He does a great job.
Essential infrastructure, utilities, communication, transportation services in the United States. According to the Washington Post, anonymous U.S. officials and cybersecurity experts recently noted that hackers linked with China's People Liberation Army have infiltrated roughly 2 dozen essential
Shout out to Jews for the cash app. I appreciate it, brother.
Anonymous officials and experts claim that China's infiltration of critical entities is part of a widespread plan to disrupt and destroy essential services if a conflict occurs between China and the United States in the Pacific region. According to information obtained by the Washington Post, hackers linked with China's People Liberation Army infiltrated services such as water utility, right? Well, look at this. This Cyber Polygon event that started a couple years ago, right? Right as everything started kind of hitting the fan, then they start doing these exercises. And when you look at some of the really big partners, I mean, and the leader of this, Klaus, everyone knows him. He is the same exact person that was issuing this big warning. And when you look at who is connected, it's just very, very fascinating. I mean, you have people, IBM, you have all these very, very, very big companies and organizations connected to Cyber Polygon discussing, how they would respond to a massive cyber attack that completely shut everything down, right? And when you have the head of this, or one of the heads, saying that the cyber attack could happen, it's likely in the next 2 years, that was almost 1 year ago. So basically what they were saying is it could be happening in next 12 months, right? But I personally, when we look at, what's going on with all these different cyber events all over the world, I mean, you look at the 3rd largest mortgage provider in America just had a massive cyber attack. 4.3 million mortgages were, impacted. People couldn't pay their bills. They were unable to pay their bills, access their account, massive data breach. That just happened. Will a catastrophic cyber event really happen in the coming years, or are the unlikely, right? So you start to look at this, and then you have right here, China's affiliated hacking groups infiltrated critical American infrastructure, including Hawaii water. Then this, prepping for a cyber pandemic, a worldwide drill. Now this is ABC News. This is ABC News right here. Harrisburg, PA, the World Economic Forum kicked off its annual Cyber Polygon, right? Exercise Friday, which gives companies and governments the opportunity to participate in a simulation of a cyber pandemic. It is inevitable that some larger attack is going to occur one day. When we're interested to hear what's going to happen, when this will happen, it's a practice session in which they get to brainstorm a scenario. How would this affect the world economy? How might this affect individual corporations? And what can be done to protect them? What is being talked about today and over the next couple of days is a potential real-world situation. 2021, 200 teams from 48 countries participating in the worldwide training exercise, companies like IBM and Ernst & Young. The focus on a live drill this year is targeting supply chain attack on a corporation.
Yo, shout out to everybody, man. Shout out to all of y'all, man, in the chat. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate y'all being here on the Kutty UnKutt live. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to y'all, man. The GOAT will be coming and taking over the show in just a moment. Shout out to the GOAT.
It's the GOAT.
Y'all know who it is.
You feeling them?
Kutty UnKutt live, man. Shout out to Pilar, man, and Buddha Palms and everybody at the Butters Barbershop downtown Kansas City, Missouri. You know what I'm talking about? 11th and Grand. Shout out to the Butters Barbershop. Man, I hope y'all doing well on this Friday. We're going to get it in. And later on, we're going to have a movie night, too. You know what I'm saying? Bring some of these controversial movies and shit like that so we can break that shit down. You know what I'm saying? Private Zoom movie night tonight. Got you. Let's get it.
If a scenario like this in real life, it could happen. It could impact your daily lives by shutting down water treatment facilities, power grids, or the internet. What would you do if you can't access your bank account, the internet, or your cell phone suddenly stop working? These are all the kinds of things people really do need to think through, because one day we may be facing a crisis like that. Now, what are the odds? The former president,
you like that, don't you, old dude? You like that?
A cyber
you like that,
and discussing China, and then all of these things start to unfold, right? I mean, there's certain things that, you know, some people say, oh, that's tinfoil hat. But I'm just, simple question, what would be the odds of all of this, right? Probably 1 in a billion. I would say probably 1 in a billion, right? Something very interesting, I believe, is happening now, and it's the death of 1,000 cuts. Every single day it gets a little bit weirder, a little bit stranger. But I believe 2024, 2025, next year, next 2 years, things are going to start to get real. And what I actually believe, in relation to people that are looking to invest, people are going to start looking to buy second homes before, you know, it was
Big dog, Billy OG.
I believe people are going to look for second homes in rural areas, you know, places where they can have their own little farm. I believe people are going to start to do stuff like that at a level in which we've never seen before. I think people are going to start buying properties in different countries and looking to get second passports and do all these different things they would have never otherwise considered because of the chain of events that are unfolding. Because even if the odds are 5%, 10%, that's significant, right? That is significant, especially when you look at what is at stake. Then, over the course of a quarter, it's in excess of 1 million cyber attack attempts. Russia is in number 1, followed by the Netherlands, and then it goes down by a scale. By far, Russia surpasses all others combined. There's a silent war going on to keep the bad guys at bay and to keep information safe. The Cyber Polygon event goes on for several days. Experts will hold a discussion on the cryptocurrency and ransomware. So what do you think about this? Do you believe that this story is about a family vacationing in Long Island, interrupted by 2 strangers bearing news of a blackout? The threat grows. Both families must decide how best to survive the potential crisis, right? Do you think that this is something that is about to get out of control? Do you think this situation is going to grow? I personally believe that is probably going to happen. I believe we're going to walk into a situation where people really need to position themselves. When I say position themselves, what I mean is you want to get out of high interest rate credit card debt. You want to put yourself to have potentially, not to sound crazy, have some food, right? You probably want to have some food. You probably want to have a backup plan in the event that something did happen, maybe some cash at home. You probably want to have, enough for a few days at minimum, right? At minimum. If this situation did unfold, you could just imagine what the stores would look like. It would make 2020, that peak pandemonium, people are fighting over toilet paper and, detergent and things like that. That would look like child's play. That would look like an absolute joke compared to if people, one day couldn't turn the internet on or they couldn't access their bank account. The cities would be riddled with crime. If things would get out of control overnight. And within the matter of a day, 2 days, 3 days, you would start to see things that you would otherwise never imagine, not even in a horror movie. Things would start to unravel within a week to 2 weeks. If this did ever happen, I'm not saying it's going to. Again, I'm not saying it's going to. I'm just simply saying, what are the odds, right? What are the odds that that movie came out? Then you have this situation that's unfolding, and then you have all these, they're literally role-playing this situation. So the most powerful people in the world role-playing this situation, talking about this, and here we are, right? All of these different scenarios unfolding back to back to back to back to back. Now, what do you think? Drop below. Let's have a conversation about this.
Shogun here, and America is experiencing a major cyber attack as we speak. Chinese hackers have successfully hacked into critical infrastructure right here in the US. And look, we talk about World War III a lot on this channel because personally, I believe that we are already in the middle of World War III. In fact, I believe that World War III started years ago. Now, I often get a lot of pushback about that opinion. People say, oh, trust me. You'll know when World War III is here. You'll know. Well, you see, I think that when people think of World War III, they envision this vision of nuclear bombs flying overhead everywhere, enemy soldiers invading America, America invading other countries. They think of this all-out chaotic world warfare of the likes that we've never seen, everyone fighting each other. But in reality, I don't think that's what World War III is going to look like. We have advanced as a civilization. Our militaries have advanced far beyond what you see on your TV screens, far beyond what you know. And much of World War III, in my opinion, is going to be fought through cyber warfare and other, dare I say, futuristic means of warfare. Like, for example, how many of you all are familiar with like the Revolutionary War and stuff like that? Back in the day, during the Revolutionary War, armies used to line up. They would line up in formations and march directly towards the enemy as the enemy shot them down. Looking back on that type of warfare now, it looks absolutely idiotic. Why in the hell would you march soldiers in formation right into enemy fire? For honor, for dignity? Because it looked elegant? Because it seemed like the royal thing to do? So when you look back on a lot of ancient warfare, or a lot of warfare from centuries ago, you may laugh at their tactics. But fast forward to 2023. Honestly, putting boots on the ground is kind of barbaric. That's so 20, 30 years ago. There's no point in really putting boots on the ground in today's day and age, unless, population control. You want a certain portion of the population wiped out, and a war is a good way to do that. But in the day and age of drones, unmanned fighter jets, all of these different bombs and missiles, you can fight a war from a control room all the way across the world without a single soldier setting foot on enemy soil. Now, of course, that's not the case with every country and every nation. And one could make the argument that you still need soldiers on the ground for, to occupy certain areas, maybe for like door-to-door urban combat. But for the most part, we have reached a point where war can be fought without boots on the ground. We've even reached a point where war can be fought without bloodshed, by strictly attacking other people's infrastructure, attacking other people's economies, cyber attacks, like what we're witnessing right now. So when you think of World War III and you think of people exploding and nuclear bombs flying everywhere, understand that World War III may look a lot different. World War III may look like, hey, the busiest street in your town has their traffic lights hacked into, and it disrupts the local economy. World War III might not be a nuclear bomb dropping on New York City. It might be the power grid being knocked out by hackers, causing hundreds of deaths, maybe even thousands, people panicking, hospitals not being able to provide oxygen and things of that nature. You have to really think about war very differently in today's day and age. But before I go any further, let's go ahead and roll this clip from the news, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
Post reveals hackers affiliated with China's People's Liberation Army have infiltrated critical services here in the U.S.
Alexandra Hoff joins us now from our nation's capital. Alex, this is not good.
No, it's not. I mean, this infiltration appears to be part of a broader effort to insert chaos into our logistical systems. The information collected could then be weaponized if the U.S. and China were to become engaged directly in the Pacific. According to reporting from the Washington Post citing multiple U.S. and industry security officials, China's cyber army is invading critical U.S. services, like an attempt to break into the system behind Texas's independent power grid. Other victims include a water utility in Hawaii, a West Coast port, and at least one oil and gas pipeline. according to that report you're seeing there. Brandon Wells, executive director of the Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity Agency, told the Washington Post this, quote, "It is very clear that Chinese attempts to compromise critical infrastructure are in part to pre-position themselves to be able to disrupt or destroy that critical infrastructure in the event of a conflict, to either prevent the United States from being able to project power into Asia or to cause societal chaos inside the United States to affect our decision-making around a crisis." The report notes that over the past year, hackers affiliated with the People's Liberation Army in China have accessed the computer systems of about 24 critical entities.
So I don't know if you've been paying attention. I haven't had a chance to talk about it much with all of these other conflicts going on in the world. But things are popping off in the Pacific right now. China is bullying a lot of ships that are traveling through the area from the Philippines. Japan starting to get worried, even Australia. A lot of countries, a lot of areas, a lot of little islands on that side of the world, they're preparing for the inevitable because China looks like it wants to make a move. Now, simultaneously, whenever this happens, I do believe that China has already infiltrated into a lot of our infrastructure like we're hearing right now. And they may not do something today, not tomorrow, but when the time is right, they will strike. So as they invade Taiwan or make a move somewhere else, simultaneously, all hell is going to break loose in America because they're going to have the ability to shut down our power grids, maybe hack into electric vehicles, who knows, hack into bank accounts, deplenish people's bank accounts. All hell is going to break loose, basically. And everyone in America, you kind of get this sense of, oh, when wars happen, it doesn't really affect us on our soil. Well, through cyber warfare, other countries will be able to attack Americans right on American soil without having to really have to attack Americans on American soil. They'll be able to hurt us in different ways, in ways that will hurt our country probably more than us losing a few hundred soldiers on the battlefield. And the craziest part is that all of this is happening. Our government knows it's happening. And to make no mistake about it, our government is hacking into other countries as well. It's not one-sided. It's not like it's just China doing this. All of the powerful countries around the world are doing this now. But it's always weird to me that world leaders meet. Like you'll have the Joe Biden meet with the leader of China or the leader of India or the leader of any of insert country's name here. And they have these cordial meetings, talking and shaking hands, knowing that both their countries are fighting each other through cyber warfare. Like, my question is, how far do you allow our enemies to go? How far do you allow them to push? How much do you allow them to do through cyber warfare before you respond? Will we reach a time where people respond to cyber warfare with real warfare? Like one day, will we drop a bomb on someone and say, hey, that's because they hacked into the Starbucks computer system? You know what I mean? Just plain, but for example, one day will we strike another country with real physical bombs in response to a cyber attack? That's yet to be seen, but that's a conversation that needs to be had. But as of right now, rest assured that we are fighting. We're in the middle of war, regardless if you like it or not. And much of the war that is going on is a war that you'll never see, a war that you'll never know about until you wake up one day and wonder why your power is off, even though you paid the light bill. You know, like things like that, folks. But it is what it is. All in all, we are headed to some interesting times. And for now, I want to know your thoughts about it down in the comments below. What do you think about this? Do you agree?
Peace, peace, peace. Peace to all American Aborigines. Supreme Chief Holiday is tapped in. DJ Kutty in the morning show. What up, though? How everybody doing, man? Hey, man. Hey, I'm I'm gonna be slow like y'all, man.
Right,
On that
because
like
over
button.
the past 2 years, one of the greatest hoaxes ever
Oh, crap.
perpetrated on the American people was meticulously carried out by the deep state. And it had all of the help of the propaganda arm of the United States media. Everything went from the Associated Press to CNN to the New York Times. So it's not hard to believe that a majority of Americans actually fell for it. Americans are trusting people. They're hardworking. They're busy. They're taking care of their families. And when they flip on CNN or something for a brief few moments and they hear this rhetoric and this propaganda, they went along with it, unfortunately. Americans were told that Ukraine was invaded by the demonic Russian army in an unprovoked attack. They didn't know the history going back to 2014. Americans were told that Ukraine was a democratic country with a selfless hero named Volodymyr Zelensky, a man in a green t-shirt who turned down an evacuation by the Biden administration to stay and fight in Ukraine. This guy was a hero. He just needed bullets and our support.
When rumors surfaced that he was fleeing the capital, however, he pushed back with a video of him and his leaders in the street, saying, "We're still here." And when the Biden administration offered an evacuation, he said, "I need ammunition, not a ride."
Yeah. And that was echoed in the mainstream media. I need ammunition, not a ride. And man, you saw CNN, everyone was like, wow, this guy's brave.
Mhm.
This is a leader.
Yeah.
Screw Putin. This guy's the real hero, right? And it worked. I mean, Americans hung Ukrainian flags on their houses. They updated their Twitter bios and put Ukrainian flags there.
The sacrifice.
I mean, the sacrifice they made was overwhelming, right? They opened their wallets and actually donated money. They opened their homes and welcomed refugees in.
A lot of people took the pictures of their family on Facebook and put a Ukrainian tint across the, of the Ukrainian flag.
They really went all out.
Yeah, that's really showing the world.
They invited Zelensky to hang Ukrainian flags in United States Congress. They let him speak at a joint session of Congress, which is an honor which is only reserved for people who control the United States. We only let people who we answer to speak in front of a joint session of Congress. The propaganda was incredibly strong, and most Americans, of course, fell for it. Falling for it allowed the United States Congress to send over $200 billion to Ukraine. I love seeing this fake number floating around of $111 billion. Let's be honest. We know that that's just the batch of money that they've set aside for Ukraine. The tens of billions of dollars that is secretly and had already been funded to Ukraine is well over $200 billion. It's one of the largest boondoggles in American history. More than 500,000 Ukrainians are now dead. American defense companies set record profits. The CEO of Raytheon casually admitted the truth that the war in Ukraine is very profitable.
You made some public comments a while back about how, the conflict would likely result in an increase in your business. Some took issue with that. That seems like a logical consequence of what's going on, right?
Yeah, it's fair enough. Look, we don't apologize for making these systems, making these weapons. I make no apology for that. I think, again, recognizing, we are there to defend democracy. And the fact is, eventually, we will see some benefit in the business over time.
Yeah, we will.
Some benefit,
Yeah.
a little bit.
The Biden administration is now threatening Americans. Ukraine needs more money or Putin will win. And Americans will need to go fight in Ukraine, as we just talked with Jim Ferguson about. This is really happening in the UK and in the United States. President Biden said this last week. And Secretary of State Blinken reminded all of us this week that war has been great for American companies, so you should be happy about this.
Footnote on this, and this is more for the American audience. If you look at the investments that we've made in Ukraine's defense to deal with this aggression, 90% of the security assistance we provided has actually been spent here in the United States with our manufacturers, with our production, and that's produced more American jobs, more growth in our own economy. So this has also been a win-win that we need to continue.
It's a win-win. He says that with a straight face. It's a win-win. Well, this week, America's second favorite world leader behind Benjamin Netanyahu was back in Washington begging for more money. He's going to meet with President Biden and the Speaker of the House, the new Speaker of the House. But before he does that, he met yesterday with his main benefactors, of course, the United States defense industry. I mean, this was an unbelievable. Let's get the cameras here. Let's make sure he's shaking hands with all of these defense contractors. There he is, shaking hands with the Lockheed Martin's executives, Boeing executives, Northrop Grumman. Can you imagine all these guys in one room? And he wears his Ukrainian t-shirt. Like, this is the guy. He's coming here and he's meeting with them before he's meeting with President Biden, because you know exactly who his paymasters are. General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, all of them were there. And it was an unbelievable moment. And then he tweeted this, actually. So he went into great detail about this. This is what Zelensky tweeted. I met with the leaders of the U.S. defense companies and expressed my gratitude to every American worker who manufactures weapons that help us safeguard our people and defend our land. I appreciated all American companies that attended last week's U.S.-Ukraine Defense Industry Conference. I also proposed establishing a European defense hub in Ukraine. We are prepared to make all essential decisions, cut red tape, and allocate orders. Now, that sounds like a great idea. Think about that, right? It's the most corrupt country in Europe. So let's build a European defense hub in this location. He says, we'll cut red tape. What red tape do you have to begin with? We can't account for the weapons that we've already sent you. We can't account for the money we've already sent you. You're going to cut red tape? How much more red tape is there to be cut? And we're going to allocate orders, making sure that so Ukraine will become the NATO defense. We've said it all along that the whole purpose of this was to turn Ukraine into an aircraft carrier for NATO, put weapons on display so that people can make orders, use it as like a training ground, a proving ground, so people can come and watch how weapons are used and destroy and leveraged. He says, we are ready to produce more ammunition and military vehicles, but we require support. It's important to develop joint production of artillery, ammo, air defense systems, and artillery and missile systems. Together, we can create more jobs, generate more strength, and provide more opportunities for both of our nations. And here's the photo op, of course, with these guys after the big meeting there, all of the defense contractors that shook hands with him, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, General Dynamics, of course, they're all there. However, something is different this time in Washington, D.C. with Zelensky's trip there. You know, before, of course, he was speaking in front of a joint session of Congress. Not anymore. Zelensky is this time, though, being met with a cold shoulder by members of Congress. And U.S. headlines showing this time as he arrives in Washington. Winter, advantage Russia. Biden and package risks collapse. Ukraine on brink of losing war. I've seen a number of headlines talking about this is not good. This is not good for him now rolling into Washington, D.C. J.D. Vance told Steve Bannon today that people in Washington want to cut Social Security benefits in order to give money to Ukraine so Zelensky's ministers can buy yachts. Those are J.D. Vance's words. Listen.
You have a foreign leader coming to the United States like we're some sort of geopolitical Salvation Army. That is not the role of the United States here, is to hand out money to every beggar who comes into our country and demands that we fund their foreign conflict. So Zelensky is parachuting into this domestic political debate about prioritizing our own border. He's not here to tell us anything we haven't heard before. He's here to badger and browbeat Speaker Johnson and Senate Republicans into foregoing our negotiations on border security in order to write him another blank check. I've never seen anything like this. This is not Churchill coming in the midst of World War II. This is literally a guy begging for a handout and telling Republicans to stop negotiating over your own border security. I'm offended by it. As a United States Senator, I'm offended by it. We should be focused on our own border and be having that debate. We don't need Zelensky to parachute and tell us how to run our country. You have people in this town saying we need to cut Social Security. There are people who would cut Social Security, throw our grandparents into poverty. Why? So that one of Zelensky's ministers can buy a bigger yacht? Kiss my ass, Steve. It's not happening.
Kiss my ass.
Kiss my ass, Steve. It's not happening. Yeah. T-shirt boy comes to Washington, D.C. and asks for more money. $61 billion this time. $61 billion is what we need in order to make this happen.
Now, Republicans continue to say they're not going to put up this money without any kind of guarantee around the border security. We'll see what happens. I mean, we're
Well,
on the
JD
edge of our
Vance,
seats.
I mean, yeah, Senator Vance said, look, this is the first time he's actually seen Republicans somewhat united around something, which is maybe border security. It's convenient that, now it's almost an election year. So that's now suddenly a concern to them.
Okay.
And going to torpedo a Ukraine budget. We'll see. So will Republicans hold strong, or are they going to cave and send billions more to Ukraine? We will know the answer to this very, very soon. Maybe.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky seems to have gotten an early Christmas present. President Biden announced the U.S. would provide a $200 million drawdown from the Department of Defense during a meeting with Zelensky in the Oval Office yesterday. Let's listen.
I just signed another $200 million drawdown for the Department of Defense for Ukraine, and that'll be coming quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
While Zelensky seemed happy, the move didn't go over well with everyone. Presidential hopeful RFK Jr. tweeted, "The Pentagon just failed their 6th audit. They use our tax dollars with no remorse or oversight. That stops with me."
And Republicans in both the House and the Senate reiterated their concerns with sending more money to Ukraine unless it's tied to domestic spending. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson told a gathered crowd of reporters that he had not received sufficient clarity from the White House on its Ukraine strategy.
Just had a good meeting with President Zelensky. I reiterated to him that we stand with him and against Putin's brutal invasion. The American people stand for freedom, and they're on the right side of this fight. I have asked the White House since the day that I was handed the gavel as Speaker for clarity. We need a clear articulation of the strategy to allow Ukraine to win. And thus far, their responses have been insufficient. They have not provided us the clarity and the detail that we requested over and over since literally 24 hours after I was handed the gavel as Speaker of the House.
On the Senate side, Tommy Tuberville from Alabama was even harsher, implying that Ukraine probably never had much of a chance to win in the first place. Let's watch.
Are you concerned that if there's no money, Ukraine could lose the war to Russia?
Well, that's always been a big possibility the whole time. I mean, I've never thought they'd win to begin with, especially the way we eased into it.
What are the implications that if Russia wins? Are you worried about the implications if Russia wins?
Well, everybody keeps saying they're going to continue to go across Europe. I mean, they can't beat Ukraine on the eastern side. How are they going to continue to go the rest of the way through Europe?
Lies.
I've never believed that scenario. I think it's a good selling point to send more money.
I mean, Tommy Tuberville is obviously right. Russia is a nuclear power. Ukraine is not. And without the United States being willing to commit to World War III, this was always going to end exactly like this. The fact that we're now allowed to say that out loud without being accused of being a Putin's puppet represents a meaningful shift, but at what cost to the lives of people in Ukraine?
Yeah, and frankly, Speaker Mike Johnson, I thought he said a number of reasonable things there. He said, we stand with Zelensky, with the people of Ukraine. Russia, this was an unjust invasion that Russia shouldn't have done. I didn't take funding off the table. I just said, explain to us what the strategy is to win this war, and then we could talk about whether we'll be willing to pay for it. And there is no strategy. And in fact, privately, the intelligence officials knew this was probably a doomed effort. They knew exactly what Senator Tuberville is saying there. That was what our own intelligence officials concluded from the get-go. So why are we spending the money then? Which is just prolonging the point at which they're going to reach some kind of negotiation. There'll just be more casualties on both sides of the conflict in the meantime, and more of our money, another $200 million that Biden that's like the rainy day fund. It's already been approved. No wonder, by the way, the Pentagon keeps failing its audits when this is how we do policy. Like, we didn't have Congress. Okay, they already voted on this, and Biden can just spend it how he wants. This is how you get into a place where you can't control government spending. You don't know what's going where. You don't have a coherent national defense strategy. You just have here's some money and have fun with that.
Yeah, I mean, to play devil's advocate, I do think that the U.S. had a strategy. It wasn't a strategy that was aligned with Ukraine's long-term interests, but the stated goal was to weaken Russia. They said that. The stated goal was to weaken Russia. I think what they didn't expect was for Russia to basically persist in the way that it had and to not suffer as many consequences from the isolation that they wanted to impose, that they've been trying to impose both through these military efforts and through sanctions as they had hoped. The actual consequence of this now almost 2-year conflict has been Russia pulling together with the rest of its allies in the world more closely. You've seen a realignment economically with the growth of the BRICS nations. You've seen a push toward de-dollarization and people moving away from dollar as a currency. And so it's not that Russia has become more increasingly isolated as a consequence of the conflict in Ukraine, is that the United States has become more isolated.
But that was foreseeable too, that strategy wouldn't work. I always say this, show me the evidence that sanctions dislodge enemy regimes. That rarely happens. Our 50-year embargo against Cuba couldn't even dislodge that regime. That was a far stronger sanction type measures taken. That didn't work to get rid of that government. It immiserates the people of the countries that are targeted by this. It doesn't engender more goodwill toward the U.S. and it doesn't take out their leadership. It fails to do that over and over again. So it's not surprising that yet again that did not work.
Yeah, and props to Tuberville for also calling out there at the end of his statements. He alluded to the fact that the argument that Putin was going to march across Europe was being used as a cudgel to get more funding. That has always been the case up right until last night, where Biden characterized this additional $200 million in additional military aid to Ukraine as thusly. He said, if you don't give it, it will be, quote, the greatest Christmas gift to Putin, to not continue to provide this funding to Ukraine. And what we're talking about with this $200 million is largely these additional weapons drawdown. So this is from Fox News. It will be taken from Pentagon stockpiles and include additional ammunition for the high mobility artillery rocket. That's the HIMARS system that has been discussed at length in Ukraine. High-speed anti-radiation missiles, anti-armor systems, artillery rounds, missiles, demolition munitions, etc. Now, remember when we were having that conversation about cluster bombs over the summer, part of the reason that we were looking the other way as cluster bombs are being used in violation of our global policies because of how destructive they are specifically to children was because we were running low on our own munitions stockpiles, and that was all we had to give. Now we're being told we're sending another $200 million worth of these weapons and equipment from, again, allocations that were made with the intention of defending American safety interests at home and around the world. Now, I have my own critique of U.S. empire and how much we spend on military, but it is very interesting to live in a world where Joe Biden is saying money that was allocated to protect America is going to be written away to send to another country when there's already been ample reporting on our own stockpiles being low. Is this in America's best interest? And who exists in our political system who's willing to push back on this outside of a small number of Republicans?
And if Russia was actually planning to march across Europe, if our European friends and allies really believed that was about to happen, they would be kicking in more money to the Ukrainian war effort, the people who will be subsequently invaded, Germany, France, etc. This has largely been left to the U.S. The U.S. is sending the bulk of support. It's coming from us, which is always the case, where we have to be the world's policeman. If this was an existential threat to Europe itself, if this was the beginning of the Soviet takeover of Europe, I bet they would be more worried about it. They're not. That tells you something.
And you probably wouldn't have to have bombed their pipeline. I don't know who did it, but you probably wouldn't need a pipeline bombing to twist the arm of Germany to get on board with this project.
Yeah.
Now, as Zelensky, the cokehead, and he is on drugs, he cross-dressed. As he's in America begging for money, this is what's going on.
3 a.m., 53 people have been wounded, of whom 20...
I'm going to show you something. It's so obvious. They don't never want to show you any destruction in Ukraine. They show you a couple of buildings. Show us like you're showing us what happened in Gaza. I told you it's murder porn in Gaza, but they want to make you think Ukraine is strong and they knocking all of the missiles out the air. That's nonsense. But this is
26 had to be hospitalized. Of those 26, 8 were children. That's according to Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kyiv. So this is the largest number of wounded in an attack on...
What makes this so interesting is the U.S. and the European Union been telling us for 2 months now they don't give a damn about no kids They don't give a damn about no buildings being knocked over. Israel has the right to defend themselves. Now when they're reporting on some violence happened to Ukraine overnight, a playground, 8 kids were wounded. I thought y'all didn't give a damn about no kids. No, they care about blue-eyed, blonde-haired white kids like they said at the beginning of this war.
On the Ukrainian capital in many, many months. It's the result of ballistic missiles that were fired from somewhere just inside Russia. They can travel to the Ukrainian capital in less than 2 minutes, so the air sirens hardly have time to go off, but the air defenses did manage to shoot all of them down.
That's a lie.
But with these ballistic missiles, you can't just destroy them completely in the air. Large fragments fall and can do significant damage.
This is called propaganda. We shot all of the missiles down, but some debris landed on stuff. Later, Russia tell us what command and control centers they hit, what Patriot system was knocked out. But you see, they like to lie because they're still trying to sell some of that crap to the other world. Buy some Patriot systems from America. They're protecting Ukraine. Bullshit.
As I think you can see from the building behind me, municipal workers are still trying to secure
turn your
the building.
camera. Why don't you show us what's around you? Oh hell, look at his face. You don't want to see. You don't want to see what he really looking at. Boy, it'll shock you.
Lots and lots of broken glass, and there's a very similar scene that you can't see just in front of me. A traumatic experience for the residents of Kiev, coming at a time when Ukrainians are more and more worried about the future of US aid to their country after Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington was inconclusive. Joe Biden saying that he very much wanted the US Congress to vote on this $60 billion more in aid to Ukraine, but he said that he couldn't promise anything. So that's obviously something that Ukrainians do not find very reassuring at all. Volodymyr Zelensky is now in Europe. This week there's the EU summit where there's another 50 billion euros that have to be decided on in terms of aid for Ukraine. And of course, this question of whether the European Union will open accession talks with Kiev next year.
Oh, now this is a shame. Nobody wanted to help Zelensky. They promised him they was going to be there to the end. Well, he needs to understand that this is the end. So they actually kept their word. They told Zelensky, we're going to stand with you until it's all over. And Zelensky is looking like it's all over. Let's get some more of this fake news, because I like to hear they whining and lying and things of that nature too. We got to find out what they think going on.
News that dozens of people have been injured after Russia launched a wave of missile strikes at the Ukrainian capital overnight. Ukraine's Air Force says it took down 10 targets over Kyiv early this morning, but falling debris damaged homes, cars, and a children's hospital. The mayor of Kyiv,
children's hospital. Y'all didn't give a damn about no hospitals. You didn't care about no hospitals. We see what's going on in Gaza now. All of a sudden in Ukraine, a children's hospital. Prove it. Take us to the children's hospital. Oh, no. We just going to show you this building right here. It's plenty more destruction. Show us the other stuff. Oh, no. We can't show you all that.
Vitaly Klitschko said 53 people were hurt, including 6 children. Odessa also saw a series of drone attacks. Well, Jessica Parker sent this update a short while ago from the Ukrainian capital.
I'm standing in a children's...
Now, this is called propaganda, and they should be ashamed of themselves. I'm standing in a children's park, man. So what? We seen children's parks wiped out. We've been looking at Gaza. You're not going to pull on our heartstrings, man. But guess what? They want you to think these children is better than other children. Just listen.
Children's playground in the Dniprovsky district of Kyiv, but part of it has been totally destroyed. Let me show you some of what we can see here. First of all, you'll see a group of people just here, and there's a massive crater in the ground.
Nah. Finally, they decided to turn the camera. See, whenever they turn the camera around, then you see horror. Buildings blown up, but they knocked down all the missiles. Man, y'all need to stop lying. But this is a children's playground.
Must have been the point of impact from last night's blast. And then look up at the apartments. Windows blown out everywhere. Some of those flats have been completely destroyed, others very badly damaged. They're doing what they can to try and make those buildings structurally safe, or the site as safe as possible. And then also, just look over here, there is a burnt out car. Now, what we're told is it was actually parked near the apartment blocks, but the force of the blast blew it over here right into the middle of the children's playground.
Ma'am, and you say you shot y'all shot the missiles down? And this is the destruction you get? Oh my goodness, you might well let the missile hit.
We've been speaking to residents. Clearly, many of them are having to find somewhere else to stay. Some have family and friends they can go to. Others are going to go to a school that is being provided as a temporary shelter.
Well, the Palestinians tried to go to a school that's temporary shelter, and the Israelis hit the school. Y'all said Hamas was there. I hope that those Azov battalion neo-Nazis don't go hide in that school, man. Now, I'm trying to tell you, that's war. Y'all told us that was war. We've been listening to y'all say, hey, schools, mosques, churches, hospitals blown up. So guess what, man? You just preach it to the choir.
One man I spoke to, Alexander, he got very visibly upset when we were talking because he said he had seen some of his neighbor's children injured following last night's missile attack.
Injured? Man, we've been seeing dead children. You talking about injured children? Now, that's wrong. We don't like no injured children. But we have seen over 7,000 children killed in Palestine. And y'all didn't give a damn. I didn't see you reporting from the park in Palestine. And I told you this was going to happen, man. Once Putin start raining them missiles down again, y'all not going to be able to say, we a park. When we see y'all blow up parks in Palestine, man. It just don't, it hit different now, man.
And he also called, as I spoke to him, for continued Western support. That, of course, as President Zelensky has been in Washington, D.C. to try and unlock a $60 billion package of military aid, but so far has failed to break the deadlock.
That's Jessica Parker in Kiev.
Trying to unlock a package of, man, look, stop begging, bro. We ain't got nothing for you like this. Now, let's hear, because your stuff really getting good, man. Just, Now let's hear what Professor Michael Clark of the BBC, this Sky News, big time liars. Professor Michael Clark, I thought your ass would be hiding under the rock. You told me Ukraine was winning. You told me Putin didn't even have no more missiles. But now I'm going to see and you told me Ukraine was on the advance. Now let's see what you got to say, brother, for yourself. You don't got no
perspective on the strike last night. Our analyst, Professor Michael Clark, is here with us. Michael, it's great to have you with us. So just talk to us about that missile strike last night on Kyiv.
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly the beginning of Russia's offensive, its air offensive against Ukraine.
Now, this is clearly the beginning of you trying to tell some lies. Brother, Russia has been striking this capital for the last couple of weeks. Weeks, brother. Weeks. I wonder where you been. You sleep longer than Jim Crow Joe. Weeks. This ain't the beginning, brother. This the end. Now here you are fooling people. Seems like Russia is starting to what? No, Ukraine is starting to tap out. Now you already start off line. This ain't the beginning, brother. This has been going on, but carry on.
Ukraine over the winter designed to take down the Ukrainian infrastructure, particularly the energy infrastructure, and affect health, power, and everything. It's been building up. They've been using drones until recently, and then over the weekend we saw cruise missiles. Now we're seeing ballistic missiles in the last couple of days being used. As far as we know, the Russians have stockpiled about 800 missiles and maybe 1,500 drones, mainly Iranian drones, for this offensive. And they clearly, the fact that they're targeting Kiev with ballistic missiles, first time for 70-odd days, that's pretty important, because now the Ukrainians are going to have to live through the winter with the Russians attacking them pretty relentlessly.
And you think this is the beginning of that bombing campaign?
Almost certainly, yes.
Yeah. All right, so talk to us about the fighting then on the ground. Where's it happening?
Bro, you're not helping them. So that made the best help. Do you hear this? This is Professor Michael Clark. He was a big-time military guy for Britain. No wonder they got their ass kicked in every war they ever fought. Since he's been alive. The best advice he can give Ukraine is, it look like you're going to have to hunker down while Russia just bomb you and take out your electrical grid. Not that NATO can help, because there's nothing NATO can do. They just going to have to hold on and pray Putin and Russia decides not to do it to them. Oh, this is great. NATO is weak.
Yeah, I mean, the place that is very dramatic at the moment is Avdiivka. And this has been going on for some time. And the Russians are trying to surround Avdiivka the way they did in Bakhmut and also earlier on in Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. They've not been able to take it frontally. They've changed their tactics a couple of times. They've lost thousands of men, including their Storm Z people, convicts, in trying to do it. But they've now got round to the north, the coking plant towards the north. They haven't taken it yet, but they nearly have.
Brother, Michael Clark. it's not supposed to be Russia taking anything. You told us Ukraine was doing the taking. Now you're telling me Russia is doing taking. Russia taking more cities. You told me all this red was going to be Ukrainians. Once the Ukrainians did that big counter-offense, Ukraine didn't take shit, lost 100,000 soldiers trying. Now you telling me Russia is on the move, but y'all keep saying it's a stalemate. A stalemate means it's a tie. Why y'all keep telling America it's a stalemate and then you don't hear talking about Russia on advance? Come on now.
We have an almost round to the south. So the Ukrainians are relying on only one road, the 0542, to get their supplies back and forwards. And even that they can only use at night because it's bombarded. And the point about Avdiivka, which is different to Bakhmut, funnily enough, Bakhmut didn't actually lead anywhere because the ground to the west of it.
But for a long time.
Exactly. I mean, though Bakhmut fell, it didn't do the Russians any strategic good. Avdiivka would, because it's a gateway both ways. For the Ukrainians, Avdiivka is a gateway to Donetsk. It's right on the outskirts of, very important city. But equally, for the Russians, it's a gateway to Kramatorsk because a big rail network runs northwest out of Avdiivka towards Kramatorsk. And so if the Russians do take Avdiivka, and they might, although they haven't made much progress recently, but in the last few days, but they might surround it and make the Ukrainians withdraw, then come the spring, they've got, although it's a longer distance, they've got a much easier route to start to attack Kramatorsk. And Kramatorsk and just north of Slavyansk, if the Russians get that, then they've got the Donbass. And that's what they will be aiming for if they can keep a new offensive going the other side.
You say if Russia does exactly what Russia has been doing, they're going to take the whole Donbass. Wait a minute. Ain't that they said what they said they was going to do at the beginning of this war, take the eastern Ukraine, the Donbass region, the Russian-speaking population? Y'all told us they weren't going to be able to do it. Russia was weak. Russia weapons was backwards. Russians was drunk. Now you've been getting paid big money. Now you got to sit here and tell the truth. It's over for Ukraine. There's nothing they can do. If Russia just continue fighting hard, Ukraine is finished. That's what this clown is saying. What happened to all of the wonder weapons Britain was sending? That shit didn't work. I told, never listen to Britain and America, man. These people got beat by the Taliban. These they want to come and act like they geniuses on what's going on. Brother, you cannot teach nobody how to defeat no goddamn Russians. I said that at the beginning of the goddamn war. And I didn't do none of their wars with them. How did I know? Because they lost to the Taliban. How the fuck they gonna teach somebody how to beat the Russians?
Going the other side of the winter.
Okay, and away from the battlefield then, Michael, the EU officials seem to be getting closer to talking about Ukraine joining, but there's some opposition.
There is. The European Union, this is Zelensky arriving in Norway somewhat unexpectedly. He's on a grand tour all the time to try and keep everyone involved in the war. The EU has been talking for some time about beginning accession talks. Now, accession will take a long time. Ukraine's a very big country, very big agricultural sector, so it will certainly affect the common agricultural policy in a pretty big way. And the EU wants to begin accession talks for very obvious reasons, politically, and to show that it cares and to show that Ukraine is on its way to becoming a fully fledged Western power. But Viktor Orban in Hungary said, I won't do it. It's against our interests. It's against Hungary's interests. And he leans towards Putin in this whole thing.
The friend of Putin.
It has to be done by unanimity. All 27 have to agree. So somehow, if he's going to hold out against it, the other 26 have got to find a way either to buy him off, which is really probably what he wants. But if he won't be bought off, they've got to find another way round it to actually begin some sort of accession process. But as the rules stand, they can only do it if they all agree, and he won't.
Y'all lied to Ukraine. Ukraine ain't getting no EU. It's the most corrupt nation in the Europe. Ukraine ain't getting to no NATO. Why did y'all do that to Ukraine, man? Man, Ukraine was minding their own little corrupt business until y'all sit there and told them they can be part of the West. Lied to them people. Now it's not even going to be a country called Ukraine after next year. Shame on you, big guy, Jim Crow Joe.
From one wartime leader to another, let's talk about Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. He was everywhere in 2022, in posters, in parliaments, in newspapers. He was arguably the most discussed person on earth. But all that has changed. Zelensky is running out of money to fight Russia, and his banker has shut shop. I'm talking about the United States. Joe Biden asked the US Congress for more money, around $61 billion for Ukraine, but Republicans in Congress said no. So Zelensky hopped on a flight. He spent the whole of Tuesday in Washington, D.C. He met Republicans, he met Democrats, he also met President Joe Biden. His mission was to rally American lawmakers. Unfortunately, he failed. The Republicans are not going to budge. Let me tell you how the day unfolded. First, Zelensky headed to the US Capitol, which is their parliament. He met senior Democrats and Republicans. Here's what the Senate Majority Leader said afterwards.
It was a very powerful meeting. President Zelensky made it so clear.
This is a Khazarian guy right here, Chuck Khazarian Schumer. He loves Zelensky. You know, they relatives, y'all know that? They cousins. They cousins, y'all. Him and Zelensky. He also loved Israel. He also wants us to give Israel all of our money. This guy right here. You see, Chuck Schumer, one of the most powerful people in America, he would never run for president. Why? Presidents are puppets to these type of guys. Chuck Schumer, Khazarian Schumer, who's here telling us lies about if we don't stop Russia. I know why you hate Russia, Chuck. Your granddaddy and his granddaddy told you to hate Russia. But you are proud to be an American. You say, man, Chuck, you ain't got too long left on this side of the grave anyway, goddamn.
He needs help. But if he gets the help, he can win this war.
Lies.
He made it clear.
Lies. If he get the help, he can win this war. Let me tell you something, Chuck. You lost to the Taliban. If you went over there, the United States, if NATO fought Russia, Russia would get it over quick with them punks. You lost to the Taliban. They didn't have tanks or planes and barely had shoes at times. But here this dude is telling us, give Ukraine all of our money. Damn, we done gave 200 billion and they ain't done squat with it. They lost 500,000 people. Not only do they run out of money, they run out of men, Chuck. They run out of people. They got women fighting, pregnant women fighting. What's going on with you, Khazarian Chuck? You're shaking down America, bro.
That if we lose, Putin wins. And this will be very, very dangerous.
Oh, Putin. Nigga, say excuse you when you Putin. You're Putin so much, Chuck. Hold on, goddamn it. Hold on, excuse me, y'all. Hold on, goddamn it. You see, this gotta stop, man. We gotta stop this, man. We got guys like Khazarian Chuck in here trying to ruin our republic.
Influence through any surrogate. What we need to do for Ukraine.
A meeting can be good. It can be bad. It can also be okayish. But how can a meeting be powerful? That's what you say when talks fail. Powerful meeting. And the mood in Washington, D.C. reflected that. Zelensky had visited the U.S. Capitol in December last year. The atmosphere was very different then. Kiev's counteroffensive had been a success. Russia was isolated. Washington was draped in Ukrainian...
More lies. You see, man, Indian lady, you wish you had the American visa. You hate India, don't you? You hate yourself. You are the reason they thought they was winning. Because they looked on the news, you said they was winning. Ukraine's counteroffensive was winning. Putin was isolated. Russia has never been isolated. Get over y'all fucking self. Even your government is begging Russia for stuff. Ma'am, I know the whites own your goddamn news station, but your government is begging Russia for some of that cheap oil, which they are reselling to the Europeans, ma'am. Did you know that? When you gonna do a news story on that, ma'am? More Russia was isolated, ma'am. Get over yourself. Russia got China down with it. Your government down with it. Africa, South America, only the Western whites. Who the hell give a damn about them?
In flag, Zelensky even addressed a joint session of the U.S. Congress.
Who cares?
But this time, it was low-key, a very business-like mood, and the reasons are obvious. Kiev's second counteroffensive has failed, so U.S. lawmakers are...
No, ma'am. Every counteroffensive has failed. Everyone. You say, oh, they won the first one, but the second one, no, ma'am. They was always losing. They was never winning. That was the myth. You see? That was the myth, that they ever was winning any goddamn thing. Look at the map. Never won shit. Couple of barns. They took back a couple of barns and open fields, and y'all told them they was goddamn Alexander the Great. Please, ma'am. Now look at you. You got to come back hand in hand and say, well, guess what? They was winning, but nah, they wasn't never winning, and the gig is up, man.
Why should we give you more money? What's the strategy here? And yes, there is domestic politics too. Republicans want to give the aid on one condition. They want more funding for the southern border. Basically,
and it's not just Republicans, ma'am. It's black Democrats. Some of my elders. I'm tired of people on TV talking about the Republicans holding up the border. That's a lie. It's them Democrats in Chicago and New York. Them elders, them Social Security elders, them civil rights Democrats. They say, "Oh hell no! Well, you cannot bring these immigrants in our community. You trying to take our senior citizen or our center from us. That's what happened, man. And the congressional black coons need to stand up and take some pride for a change. They mad at motherfucker black people stood up. Now white people gonna take credit for this. They didn't do this. Hell no. Jim Crow Joe and the Democrats didn't get away with this shit. They didn't give a damn what no Republicans were saying. It's to the black people stood up. Now we didn't stop war. Give y'all some. We need the Nobel Peace Prize. We stopping war in Ukraine because we stood up in America. Ain't that something?
Tougher immigration curbs.
I have asked the White House since the day that I was handed the gavel as Speaker for clarity.
Absolutely.
We need a clear articulation of the strategy to allow Ukraine to win. And thus far, their responses have been insufficient. I've also made very clear from day one that our first condition on any national security supplemental spending package is about our own national security first. The border is an absolute catastrophe. And this is because of the policies of this White House and this administration.
I know what you're thinking. Why doesn't Joe Biden just give him what he wants? Because then some Democrats may not support his bill. So it's a tough call for Biden. The White House says aid will run out by the end of this month. Plus, Congress is breaking for holidays. It will convene again in the new year. So right now, it looks like mission impossible.
Now, how disgusting is it that Joe Biden, the Republicans say, hey, you help America, I help Ukraine. Get this understood. Joe Biden and Democrats saying, man, fuck America. We ain't finna do shit with that border. You see, they saying, oh, hell no. Republicans said, look, you deal with that border, we'll cut this check right now. Today, I sign the check right now. Joe Biden wants to destroy our neighborhood so bad. You understand why they're shipping these people to? They want to destroy our neighborhood so bad that it's holding up his money to Ukraine, and he get 10%. He the fucking big guy. But he said, we got to destroy them black communities, man. Oh, no, that's our overall plan, man. We got to think about the long plan here, man. We can't do we got to steady ship these people into these communities to own all their stores and shit like that. Ukraine, goddamn, I hate these niggas more than I love Ukraine.
And Biden realizes this. During his meeting with Zelensky, the president changed his tone. He usually promises endless support, but not this time. See if you can spot the difference between Biden's old speeches and this one.
The American people have been with you every step of the way, and we will stay with you. We will stay with you for as long as it takes. I believe we'll have the funding necessary to support Ukraine as long as it takes. We'll not weaken. We will stand for liberty and freedom today, tomorrow, and for as long as it takes. Powerful statement of our commitment to Ukraine as it defends its freedom today and as it rebuilds the future. And we're going to be there as long as that takes. The American people can be and should be incredibly proud of the part they played in supporting Ukraine's success. We'll continue to supply Ukraine with critical weapons and equipment as long as we can, including $200 million I just approved today.
Hope you spotted it. Biden usually promises to support Ukraine as long as it takes. But this time he did not. He said, as long as we can. So has the president changed his speechwriter, or has he changed his policy? Right now, the latter seems more likely, a policy change. He did give Zelensky something, though. $200 million. Normally, it would seem like a lot of money, $200 million, but it's just 0.3% of what Ukraine is asking for. So Zelensky asked for the moon, and Biden gave him a rock. Nonetheless, he's pushing on. Zelensky says, financing is not the problem, morale is. And with or without American money, Ukraine will fight.
It's not about financing. It's about the morality. The biggest problem, when you don't support Ukraine, that people on the front line, families which are waiting for their heroes at home, that they think that the United States doesn't support Ukraine and that Ukraine is alone. And of course, people afraid to be again alone. But you have to know that even if we will stand and fight.
All lies. You ain't ready to fight. You ready to run, clown. You signed a peace treaty with Putin and then backed out of that deal, sucker. You can talk all that shit you want on TV. You still got to fight Russia. And I'm so glad the whole world see. America can't help you. You get into it with Russia or China, nobody gonna be able to help you, bro. That's what white people don't understand. It's the end of imperialism. No America can't help you. All lies. I don't give a damn how pissed they get. It's over for them. If they don't like it, go fight. Don't take our money to go do it. Just go do it. They want to rob us. Never planning on fighting no goddamn Russia. They'll never fight Russia or China. Never in their life. Or Iran. You can't beat the Taliban. You can't beat Hamas. A regular American citizens need to think about this. These people talking shit to nuclear powers. They can't even beat militias. They don't got the heart. This is a shakedown. This is all about stealing our fucking money. And then signing a peace deal with the Taliban, with Putin, with whoever, after they done stole enough money from the American people, because they're not going to fight to the end. The hell no. The end is when they sign the peace deals and get the hell up out of there, whatever they can grab, whatever ain't nailed down. This is ridiculous, man. Anybody fell for this scam, and a lot of people was falling for this in the beginning of this war. I had to let all of y'all know and show y'all these damn bastards is weak. The emperor had no clothes. They was running out of Afghanistan talking shit to Russia. Running from the Taliban the next month saying they was going to defeat Russia. What? What kind of Ponzi scheme is this? What type of pick a card, any card, any card? What you type of, are you a New York street vendor? No, we need to look them in their eyes. They want us to be scared of them. I don't believe you. I don't believe you tough. I don't give a shit what type of advanced weapons you got. Well, use them. You use your weapons to beat somebody. Don't scare the hell out of the black community, because that's what this shit all about. It's a magic trick. Keep us scared to death, never rising up while they get their ass kicked all around the globe. Hell no.
But for how much longer?
This shit got to end, man.
If US funding stops, Ukraine will lose. Even Europe knows that. More than 100 senior EU lawmakers have written a letter to Congress, to the US Congress. They want the US to keep giving aid. It's a pretty rare move. Lawmakers of one country or region making a request to lawmakers of another country. It shows you their urgency. Questions must also be asked of Zelensky.
Trump told NATO and these Europeans, if Putin is such a threat, why the hell y'all doing all that gas business with him, not with us? And why the hell ain't y'all putting enough money in on NATO? The U.S. demand 2% of your GDP if you're a NATO country. They won't even give us that. America paying 70% for NATO, but they telling you, oh, Russia, it's a hustle. And Trump called them out. Trump said, you pay the damn 2% or we're going to pull out of NATO. Oh, then they start going, reaching, find other little money. Fuck that. It's being proven again. If America don't help you, we way over here. We ain't nowhere near Europe. Look at the fucking map. We nowhere near Europe. We need to get them understood. Putin is in Europe, bordering these clowns. If they so scared to death, if Ukraine fall, he gonna get them. Tell them put their money where they fucking mouth at. Show us. That's how you feel. It's a hustle on the American people. They look at America as a big fat piggy bank. Like Netanyahu said, they're going to carve this motherfucker up. He said that after the Twin Towers. America's a big old calf waiting to be carved up. That's how they look at us. The working man and woman, you going out and get money. That's the treasury. America, $33 million in the fucking hole. How the hell can you give Zelensky $61 billion? You owe $33 trillion. Now, they tell us we deadbeat dads. We need to get off our ass. We need to work harder, black people. All this shit. America, you owe $33 trillion. You're a bad fucking example to us. You're a bad example because you writing checks left and right like you got it like that. Because they don't give a shit about this fucking country. You know who is doing that. You know who's doing that. They don't give a shit. They won't just if we just keep living, they owe $100 trillion. Never plan on
Not everyone is happy with his leadership. The mayor of Kiev says Zelensky is becoming an autocrat. His commander-in-chief says the war is at a stalemate. In fact, there's a growing rivalry between the two. Zelensky and his top general, they're at odds. Some reports say he could soon fire him. He would fire the general. Things are so bad that the defense minister had to clarify.
I always joke with the commander-in-chief about this question. I ask him, who is firing you this time? In this regard, I am always open. If there are such questions, I will let you know. There are no such questions on the agenda. We had questions regarding some commanders, though.
So all is not well in Kiev's war room. There is no progress anywhere. Not on the battlefield, not on foreign aid, and not in Brussels. The European Union is holding a summit this week. On the agenda is Ukraine's membership. Zelensky was hoping to join the EU as soon as possible, but one EU member is saying no. That's Hungary. So I guess the question is, why not begin talks with Russia? Moscow realizes that the momentum has swung, so they're driving home the advantage. Today, they fired ballistic missiles at Kiev. It's the second such attack in 1 week. Ukraine says at least 53 people were killed, so Zelensky needs to take a call now. Does he gamble on the US Congress coming around? Does he fight alone? Or does he pursue a political settlement? Frankly, an endless war helps no one. People may talk about you for months on end, but eventually the world moves on. If you don't believe me, look at the Time magazine. In 2022, they named Zelensky as Person of the Year. This year, it's Taylor Swift. That's the world we live in.
Happen if we don't fund the Ukraine war. Meanwhile, in Congress, people are starting to reveal what the war might actually be about. Nancy Pelosi, of course, claims it's about democracy. But is Ukraine really a democracy anyway, Joe? Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining us on our mutual voyage to truth and awakening. You see how people now are saying, we don't want to fund this war in Ukraine anymore. It's clearly not working. You lied to us from the beginning. You didn't tell us you started in the first place and that Putin would stop the whole thing if you didn't allow Ukraine to join NATO. Well, now, because there's a bit more opposition and a recent attempt to get $108 billion failed, you'll see more and more media saying, if we do not win this war against Russia, or if Ukraine don't, sorry, I don't know why I said we, if Ukraine don't win, Ukraine, not we, Ukraine, don't win that war against Russia, Putin will start invading, I don't know, Finland and other NATO members. But is Ukraine really a democracy as we understand democracy anyway? And is there a set of other reasons for perpetuating this war? And now that people are opposing the war, whether that's within the institutions of American politics or in the public at large, are they escalating the threat? You have to stop Putin now. He's going to invade somewhere else. He doesn't seem to be doing that. I mean, he's never invaded anywhere, has he? Except Ukraine, which he said he would do if you tried to get him in NATO. Let's have a look at it, try and understand it a little better ourselves, because I tell you won't tell you the truth. Joe Biden and the legacy media. Let's get into it.
Breaking news, Senate Republicans blocking a bill that includes billions of dollars in aid for Israel and Ukraine, despite dire warnings from the administration that U.S. funding for Ukraine will run out in a matter of weeks. President Biden tonight also warning, quote, we can't let Putin win.
Can't let him win, can't let him win. And what the hell is that program going to be with Anthony Blinken and King Charles? King Charles and Anthony Blinken? Don't watch that.
I believe that any member of Congress who does not support funding for Ukraine is voting for an outcome that will make it easier for Putin to prevail.
Do you see what democracy is here now, in our countries? Democracy is do as we tell you, otherwise you're not democratic. But isn't democracy the freedom to choose via the ballot or other means what political outcomes ought to be? No, it's do what we tell you, otherwise Putin. That's democracy.
That is, a vote against supporting Ukraine is a vote to improve Putin's strategic position. That's just an inescapable reality.
It's inescapable. We can't escape that reality. Not by going off the planet, not by setting up some sort of colony under the sea.
Under the sea.
There is no escape from that reality. But actually, you would have to say, what's democracy like in your country lately? For example, did you get to vote on any of these wars that are going on right now? And what's democracy like in the Ukraine right now? I.e., is it a representation of the kind of liberal democratic values that we sort of all generally understand, i.e. assemblies and councils and judiciary and people voting for X and Y or whatever? Is that what's happening? Or are we in some sort of weird crisis time where the word democracy just means centralized, homogenized administration that basically prohibits and limits your power in any way they can and is looking for new ways to limit it every day?
A vote against supplemental funding for Ukraine will hurt Ukraine and help Russia.
Get ready for more of that rhetoric in the forthcoming election. If you vote for anyone other than Joe Biden, or unless we can get someone younger, and let's face it, everyone's younger. If you vote for anyone other than Joe Biden, I mean Bobby Kennedy, I mean Cornel West, I mean Marianne Williamson, I certainly mean Trump or Vivek or any of those lunatics, then you are voting for, Putin.
It will hurt democracy and help dictators, and we think that that is not the right lesson of history and that every member, Democrat and Republican, should vote to support this bill.
Okay, so democracy is do as I tell you, which essentially is what new technological dictatorships look like. You're sort of told you're in a democracy, but you don't seem to have very much freedom in it. Excuse me, isn't that a tyranny? If you ask that question, that is helping Putin to win. Here's Chris Murphy escalating the tension on your TV set.
What I know is that the future of the world is at stake. If we fail, if Republicans don't get reasonable in the next 24 to 48 hours, Russia is going to march into Ukraine. China is going to be given a green light to invade Taiwan. The world for my children is fundamentally different under that scenario. The United States security is at risk.
But other threats might include hyperbole, hysterical rhetoric designed to prevent you being able to think straight, and it seems also to continue to legitimize the funding of an unwinnable war. Unwinnable. So I don't know why Anthony Blinken is using phrases like win-win.
90% of the security assistance we provided has actually been spent here in the United States with our manufacturers, with our production, and that's produced more American jobs, more growth in our own economy. So this has also been a win-win that we need to continue.
What they mean by that is that it's economically been valuable. He's essentially there just admitted that the money for the military aid has remained in the US, generating jobs. That old favourite argument, if you let the billionaire class continue to make money, you might get a few scraps. And now a Christmas message from Joe Biden. Give us more money for our wars, otherwise we're going to start killing your children.
Putin attacks a NATO ally. If he keeps going, and then he attacks a NATO ally, well, we've committed as a NATO member that we defend every inch of NATO territory.
Now listen to this, we're all members of NATO, and there's no way of ever undoing that. There's no way of sort of saying that NATO might be a thing that we don't need anymore, seeing as how the whole thing was just set up to tackle the Soviet Union, which doesn't exist now. But it's sort of giving you all of these premises and promises, but actually, we're a very narrow bandwidth of potential options. We're in NATO. Could we leave NATO? Shut up. And we've said that we're going to protect all NATO territory. Do we have to do that? Shut up. And Putin's definitely going to attack other NATO companies. Is he though? Shut up. So can we have your money or we're going to kill your children? Bloody hell. Yeah, I mean, if that's the only alternative to a dictatorship, shut up. Sorry for the Freudian slip where I say company instead of country, but you can see why that mistake might occasionally get made.
Then we'll have something that we don't seek and that we don't have today. American troops fighting Russian troops.
Do you remember the giddy days of 2022 when Joe Biden said, I promise you that we will not escalate tensions with Russia. We will definitely not have boots on the ground. That would be World War III for Christ's sake. All of that kind of rhetoric. Where's that now? Where's that just lost, moving endlessly through the cosmos, endless vibrations of lies and nothingness? Here he is in 2022 saying, we will never deploy troops against Russia.
While I will not send American servicemen to fight in Ukraine,
God, it was a long time ago. They forgot to say service people. You know, like what we're confronted with now is we will deploy troops if you don't do what we tell you. They've gone from recognizing around the time of Vietnam, oh no, American people don't like seeing their sons and daughters come home in body bags, to, all right, we can still have wars though, using technology and drones and foreign folks to fight our proxy wars for us. Well, if they don't want to fund our wars because they're getting too many alternative perspectives now because of independent media and a vibrant social discourse around important issues, we'll just threatening to kill their children again. It's a tale as old as time.
Tale as old as time.
we will not fight the Third World War in Ukraine.
So now you've heard some ideological arguments for sustaining the war between Ukraine and Russia. Putin is a mad demagogue, hell-bent on territorial expansionism across that region into NATO countries, not companies, countries, damn it. Why do I keep slipping up around that? Now we're going to hear from Thomas Massey on Tucker, an alternative take and an alternative motivation, and you, using your consciousness and your experience in the world of politics, which makes more sense to you. All them people in Congress and the military-industrial complex, they really, really want to help children in Ukraine, and they believe in this thing called democracy, or they like making money. You just yourself, just using your memory in that, decide for yourself.
Biden's budget director, the head of the OMB, sent a letter yesterday to Speaker Mike Johnson, imploring him to spend more money in Ukraine. And what they said is they want to revitalize our defense industrial base. It's that's the new acronym, DIB, for the MIC, the Military Industrial Complex. And they sent a list of states that would get money when we spend, money on deadly munitions, because they have to be manufactured in Alabama or Ohio or Texas.
Important though this content is, your health is more important, and we can't make this content without you and our partners. So let's bring you and them together right now, because recently clusters of respiratory illnesses in northern China and what's being referred to as white lung syndrome in the United States are scattered across headlines right now, drawing attention to the importance of being prepared for medical emergencies. With close to 90% of pharmaceuticals in the US being produced outside of the US, what happens when the next global crisis strikes? Countries clamp down on exports. They stockpile. The price of drugs will rise and the pharmacy shelves in America will empty. It's already starting to happen. The wellness company's medical emergency kit has got you covered for times like this. The wellness company is home to Dr. Peter McCulloch, who we've had on the show, and Dr. Drew Pinsky, he's coming on soon, and other truth-telling doctors who will empower you to take control of your own health. 40% of you Americans say you would avoid a doctor or hospital unless it was a catastrophic situation. The wellness company's medical emergency kit provides a solution. This handy little kit includes 8 potentially life-saving medications for you, along with a guidebook for safe use, obviously, emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics to help keep you and your family safe in the face of natural disasters, supply chain shortages, or medical emergencies like white lung or COVID.
And so, they're saying the quiet part out loud, that congressmen tend to vote for this stuff because a lot of this federal spending that goes to Ukraine is actually laundered back to the military industrial complex. And in some ways, not very efficiently, but in some ways, it enriches people in their districts and the stockholders, some of whom are congressmen.
Amazing. Now you see why there is such a requirement for censorship, because the way that the media functions now with figures like Tucker on X and other comparable voices, you could just say, do you reckon that these people in Congress owning stocks and shares is influencing them, or their ability to say it's improving their local economies in their states? Do you think that might be a factor, other than, of course, this humanitarian motive that we keep hearing so much about on CNN and MSNBC? That is why censorship laws are so important, because you have to starve the media space of the oxygen of opposition. That's what's happening. And believe me, they'll go to extraordinary lengths to shut down dissenting voices. One person who's probably pretty safe to speak in public is Nancy Pelosi. Here she is defending Ukrainian democracy. And now we're going to talk about what democracy amounts to in the modern world and what's the real threat. Is it populism, demagoguery, the rise of the right and extremism, or is it the fact that centralized authoritarian systems have become so corrupt and inept that something has to challenge them? And if it's not going to be true democracy, then the floodgates are open for all sorts of new opposition.
If they think they're saving money, they're not. The Ukrainians have been champions fighting for their democracy and for democracy writ large. If they were ever to lose, which is unthinkable.
Don't think it. Don't even think it in your mind. How much control do you need, Nancy, for God's sake?
And we must make sure it doesn't happen. But if they were ever to lose, can you imagine how expensive it would be to fight Putin in other countries? It's just something that is unaffordable in terms of democracy. But if you're just counting dollars, if you're just doing a green eye shade on it.
It's interesting she knows all those phrases, because have you noticed how often Nancy Pelosi invests, shall we say, in tune with the times? Like, well, Nancy, it's almost like you were at work regulating big tech companies. Then Paul Pelosi made some investments that seem to benefit from some insider knowledge, or green shade dollar bill phrases that I've not even heard before. She got more cash colloquialisms than 50 Cent.
It's a false claim to say that you're going to save money.
Isn't it uncomfortable to hear people talking in financial terms about war? And doesn't it show you how distracted and deracinated, how separated we've become from the realities of war? I'm not claiming to know anything about the realities of war. I've never been in one. But to hear the discourse spoken of only in financial terms makes me recognise, hold on a minute, you don't really understand what's going on. I bet if you sort of went round some of these Ukrainian districts or experienced the Russian lives that have been squandered pursuing what exactly, for whom exactly. So people can be members of NATO so that Raytheon and Lockheed Martin can perpetuate ideas that are beneficial to their bottom line. To me, if that's what democracy has come to, then we need to look for alternatives.
There is transparency, there is accountability, there is values-based, as well as the dollars, the values-based courage of the Ukrainian people.
There's Nancy Pelosi's perspective on the war, the financial cost-benefit analysis of human lives, Ukrainian human lives, American human lives. Presumably there's some sort of exchange rate value there. But we're all outsiders talking about Ukrainian politics, making assumptions about Ukrainian democracy and what Ukrainian people want, based on essentially a propaganda machine headed up by Zelensky. And I've got no reason to suspect that Zelensky's doing anything other than his absolute best. But here's an alternative take from Vitaly Klitschko, mayor of Kiev, former heavyweight champion of the world. He's a patriotic guy, presumably. So he is here to tell us that Ukrainian democracy is working really well, and we should keep funding everything and make sure we preserve this perfect unit of liberal democracy.
Vitaly Klitschko, who's the mayor of Kyiv, he's delivered an unprecedented critique of President Volodymyr Zelensky,
who warned that Ukrainians are losing trust in Zelensky, who he says is becoming increasingly autocratic in his presence, so much so that he warned that Ukraine could resemble Russia in the near future, at least politically.
Put aside for a moment the fact that France 24 seems like a news channel where people have just wandered in off the street and doing the news, but like this one, I suppose, and sort of recognize that what Klitschko is saying is that Ukraine is increasingly resembling Russia. So your tax dollars are funding a war between Ukraine and Russia so that Ukraine don't get taken over by Russia. Meanwhile, people in Ukraine are saying that the longer this goes on, the more Ukraine is looking like Russia. Money well spent.
But Zelensky's is facing criticism from other high-ranking officials in Ukraine, really the first signs of a growing rift in Ukrainian leadership, particularly as the war sort of settles into a stalemate for the foreseeable future. Some have argued that perhaps striking some kind of
peace deal,
accord, or some kind of negotiation with Russia could end the war. But this is something that, for the moment, Zelensky is vehemently opposed to.
So I'm sure Nancy Pelosi and all those other people that have vested financial interests in perpetuating a war know a lot more about Ukrainian politics and democracy than a Ukrainian politician who says it's not a democracy while he's mayor of Kyiv. What does this guy know? He's obviously some sort of conspiracy theorist, Putin apologist, nutbag. So let's get into Ukrainian democracy. The Ukrainian democracy that your tax dollars are funding and will continue to fund. And if they don't fund them, well, they're coming for your children next. What is this? The actual Bible? Many thousands have died needlessly in the unnecessary, unwinnable, and increasingly unaffordable war in Ukraine. What a slogan. It's unwinnable. It's unnecessary. It's unaffordable. It's the war in Ukraine. And just to give you some perspective, ringside, here's Vitaly Klitschko. We're turning our own country into Russia. Shut up, you. Get Nancy Pelosi. The financial assistance and energy subsidies the war has cost Europe and the United States totals more than the annual GDP of Maryland. This at a time when America's own national debt is already 120% of our GDP. These costs might have been worth paying if Ukraine were a democracy, but it's not. Democracies do not ban opposition parties, although in America, more and more, if you vote for anyone other than this, get used to that rhetoric. Trump's a dictator. The fact that so many such parties ever existed says something about the level of opposition faced by the Ukrainian nationalist government that came to power after the 2014 revolution. Then, in May of 2022, the Ukrainian parliament passed a law formally banning all these parties. President Volodymyr Zelensky signed the law. The list included the opposition Platform for Life, which had held fully 10% of the seats in parliament. Among the 11 banned parties are the Socialist Party of Ukraine, the Progressive Socialist Party of the Ukraine, the Union of Left Forces, and the Communist Party of Ukraine. So that's amazing, isn't it? They are not at all socialist or left-wing or democratic. Next, you'll be telling me that there's a Nazi battalion fighting in this war and being heavily funded. Democracies do not ban elections, but Ukraine has put the democratic process itself on hold since declaring martial law in 2022. This hiatus was supposed to be temporary. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, stop the spread. But it has been repeatedly extended, most recently in July 2023. As a result of that vote in the Ukrainian parliament, where all opposition parties have been removed, the parliamentary elections scheduled for last month were cancelled. Presidential elections were scheduled for March 2024, but under current rules, they too will not be held. And Zelensky has stated that now is not the time for elections. No wonder Joe Biden like to. He's exactly the same. We don't need primaries in Florida. I'm not debating anybody. It'll be bad for democracy. Democracies do not censor the media. Right? Do we censor the media? Are we passing censorship laws? What does democracy mean right now? Why are we escalating the threat of tyrants and dictators, perhaps to conceal the fact that what we're calling democracy is not exactly that, but a homogenized, somewhat banalized version of digital dictatorship? In February 2022, the Ukrainian government ordered the 9 largest television networks in Ukraine to combine their news operations into a single state-controlled news program called Telemarathon. How rubbish. You used to have 9 channels. Yes. Now you got one channel. Oh, and it's called Telemarathon. In April 2022, the National Security Council ordered 3 independent television channels associated with Zelensky's predecessor taken off the air. Democracy. In December 2022, Zelensky signed a law which gave the National Broadcasting Council statutory authority to regulate all print broadcast and digital media. That's a lot of authoritarian control for a democracy. Of course, if you are determined to support Ukraine, and I can understand that you would if you're Ukrainian or you love anyone that's Ukrainian or you just hate Russia or whatever, so many reasons, you might think, yeah, but there's a war. There's a war on, and in wartime, you have to legitimize authoritarianism. And I would say, yes, isn't that interesting the way we seem to live in this time of perennial crisis, because that does legitimize authoritarianism more broadly. But do countries that are in wars always ban democracy? Is that a standard thing? Perhaps we'll learn more about that in a minute. This law gave the Ukrainian government the ability to censor and shut down independent platforms such as Google. It's been harshly criticized by the European Federation of Journalists, which stated that it's incompatible with European Union membership. Ukraine's own National Union of Journalists called the law the biggest threat to free speech in Ukraine's independent history. That's weird, isn't it? They're in the middle of a war with Russia, and the biggest threat to free speech is Ukraine, not Russia. At this point, there are no independent television stations broadcasting news in Ukraine. Print and digital media remain heavily censored. Democracies do not prohibit travel. Not yet. Get ready for the social credit scores, kids. When Ukraine declared martial law, men aged 18 to 60 became subject to conscription and were therefore forbidden to leave the country. Many have nevertheless sought to avoid the war by fleeing abroad. Those apprehended by the border police are sent to military service. Those who managed to escape remain mostly in Poland and Germany. The Ukrainian government has asked the EU to forcibly return them to Ukraine, thus far without success. Democracy, though. Democracies do not restrict religious freedom. In December 2022, Zelensky banned the activities of all religious organizations linked to Russia. This included Ukraine's largest denomination, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which had been closely integrated with the Russian Orthodox Church for more than 1,000 years. In May 2022, the Church's synod of bishops, in a historic step, formally voted to sever all ties to Moscow and condemned the Russian Orthodox Church's support for the invasion of Ukraine. This was not enough for the Ukrainian government. It increased efforts to ban the Orthodox Church while organising and promoting a new state-controlled church. Oh man, this is not at all good, is it? Do you not wish you'd known this earlier before, like the last $100 billion or whatever that was sent over? Like, what is it that we're fighting for here? Is it possible that the Ukrainian cause is being utilised in order to facilitate projects of dominion and profit within the United States military-industrial complex? Doesn't that seem a bit more likely now than democracy after you've heard all of this? And I recognise you'd want a lot of this verified, but it's not good, is it? If people wish to join this new church, they should certainly be free to do so, but the government in Kiev has been forcing congregations to switch allegiance and seizing the property of those who resist. Democracy. The Ukrainian parliament is now preparing to formally outlaw the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Democracies do not seek to ban a nation's oldest and largest denomination. No, in fact, that's a clear sign of tyranny, I think, when you start coming for organisations like that and just banning them wholesale. If this was taking place, imagine, in a country where it's convenient for United States military interests to be bombing it, this would be the list of things that they would give you, innit? We've got to bomb this lot because of this list of things. Oh, sorry, which lot? Oh, sorry, I mean the people that this lot are fighting. We've got to bomb them. But what about all this? The information itself is not important. What's important is our agenda, and we will use the information however we want to. Democracy. Finally, we've been hesitant to focus on the far-right complexion of the Ukrainian nationalist movement. Terms like fascist and neo-Nazi are thrown about far too glibly. We're deep into dictator month over on legacy media in America. You can barely watch the news without them saying, Trump's like Mao, Trump's like Mussolini, Trump's like Hitler, Trump's like Putin. This doesn't look that democratic, does it?
I want to start using the word fascist.
Yeah, he's a fascist.
And many tendencies like Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
I said it, throw me off the air.
Yet perhaps we should have been more forthcoming, for there are undeniably authoritarian overtones to the Ukrainian nationalist movement. You need not take our word for it. Simply look up Stefan Bandera or the Azov Brigade and draw your own conclusions about where nationalism ends and racism begins. To be fair, governments do frequently limit civil liberties in times of crisis. Our own Patriot Act did that. President Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus for Southern sympathizers during the American Civil War, but never cancelled elections. Neither did Winston Churchill, to whom Zelensky is sometimes compared. Churchill actually lost the 1945 British election and had to watch Clement Attlee take the final victory lap for World War II. The catalogue of authoritarian and abuses is growing in Ukraine and shows little sign of slowing under the guidance of the West's favourite autocrat, Zelensky. It has created a state-controlled church, taken control of all television news and banned major opposition parties. This far exceeds anything that occurred in recent American or British history. Both of those nations remained fundamentally democratic during war, even a civil war. This latest cancellation of presidential elections in Ukraine destroys any pretense that we are supporting a functioning democracy. It also illustrates to me the important fact that we tend to organise information in a way that's convenient to our agenda. There'll be people that just will go, no, but he's having to do that because of this and because of that and because of the other. But I think now, this is the side I'm firmly down on. Whatever is publicly being said by the establishment about the perpetuation of this conflict between Ukraine and Russia, it is ultimately because of US financial interests and globalist interests. And actually, I'm kind of sick of the type of politics where anyone from the left or right or anywhere stands up and says, this is what we should be doing. I think now, democracy, just say to people, look, there's sort of some justification, it seems, for supporting Ukraine because there's this war in Russia. How did it start? God, it's complicated. We did impede on former Soviet territories in a way that we said that we wouldn't. Then there was a coup in 2014. We've got a bunch of biolabs over in Ukraine. There's some complexity in some of the regions around Donbass, as demonstrated by the allegiances between their two Orthodox churches. But anyway, do you want to get involved in that? Or would you rather see some money spent on schools and hospitals and generation of jobs, maybe some sort of new deal for the American people? You know, some people might go, we want to fund Ukraine. And some people might go, we want to fund hospitals and schools. And I think we're at this point, we can't maintain the idea that there is one hegemonic space that one party, or the uni party of America, because I think they're both fundamentally the same, just moves around the resources of the American people while your standard of life continually deteriorates, while our culture becomes more and more nihilistic, hollowed out and empty. And we're pretending that these globalist projects are somehow humanitarian. I think that what's needed, not only in Ukraine, but in the United Kingdom and in the United States of America, is democracy. Democracy means the people decide the direction of the nation's resources, and the people can make mistakes for themselves, rather than continuing to financially support the mistakes of the elite, particularly when it's evident they're lying to us. And whatever the reasons for their support of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, it doesn't seem to be the support of democracy, because there isn't one. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and chat? Remember, we stream every day at these times.
Are British and American soldiers about to be sent to Ukraine to fight against Russia? Politicians are warning that a tricky trade agreement called the Permanent Structured Cooperation, we're going to call it PESCO, could be used to pull the UK right back into the EU by military cooperation. Jim Ferguson is a former parliamentary candidate and a businessman and entrepreneur based in the UK. He's been warning about this issue, so thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here, Natalie. Thanks for having me on the show.
Okay, so can you explain this? You say that Ursula von der Leyen is sort of masterminding a way to re-encompass the UK in order to build out an army, which would then draw soldiers into a war, a land war against Russia or whoever else next, right? Can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I think it's important to point out the disaster that the Ukraine war against Russia has been. I mean, we've seen about between 600 and 700,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed in this pointless war. And it's not for the reasons they've been stating. There's a lot of money laundering going on. There's a lot of other things that are happening there. But what's concerning me here, Natalie, is that Ursula von der Leyen is essentially looking at subsuming all of the militaries within the European Union member states. So she's wanting absolute control over all of them. It's not correct to call it an EU army. It is a defence union. And you're quite correct in pointing out about PESCO, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, because it's not what people think it is. However, what's really important here is that what they're going to want to do, and this will encompass British nuclear deterrence. So effectively, Germans, Ursula von der Leyen and her friends in Germany and Brussels will be in charge of Britain's nuclear Trident fleet, along with the British military, the British Army, the Royal Air Force, the Royal Navy. But it gets a lot worse than that, because they also want the security apparatus Now, collectively, that's known as the Secret Intelligence Service, or the SIS. But that encompasses our internal security services, being MI5, and our foreign intelligence services, being MI6. But it also encompasses GCHQ in Cheltenham, which is a worldwide global listening post that deals with highly sensitive communications. Now, that also will go on to frontline policing. So it's not going to stop there. It will actually go on to policing and command structures there as well. The incredible thing is that this will also go into the industry with a single point command in and control overseen by Brussels. And people have been saying, well, you know, how could this have happened? Well, people have been warning about it. So, for example, Sir Richard Dearlove, the former head of MI6, is quoted as saying, placing any significant equities in Brussels would be a huge mistake. Now, he's one of the most respected former heads of MI6, I think, that the country has ever had. He was a true patriot, incredibly intelligent man, and he understands deeply the risks involved. I mean, it goes back to even 1984 when Margaret Thatcher was in charge. They tried to do it then with her. She was having none of it. But when Tony Blair got into power, followed by the likes of Theresa May, of course, Richie Sunak, backed up by Jeremy Hunt, we are now witnessing potentially a major sellout of our British military capability, but also the British people.
So can I just stop you and ask a question about intentionality then? Because I think that British voters might say, wait, we voted for Brexit. We voted not to be aligned with the European Union. And so is it, I called it sneaky in the beginning, but what you seem to be saying is that politicians understand that this is sort of a restitching of the bounds that were broken. So are you sort of saying that these politicians understand what they're doing, and this is maybe what one politician called a trade agreement that either replaces or reinforces NATO?
Yeah, well, I mean, what you've got is you've got some Conservative MPs that are being sort of mollycoddled. They're sort of being brought in and tempted to go along with this. But the Tory grandees that knew exactly what was involved, they thought that by going along with it, that they were going to get defence contracts for their own constituencies.
Oh,
but that's not going to happen, right? That's not going to happen because Ursula von der Leyen has stated that there will be one single EU-appointed defence contractor that will be chosen by Brussels, and it's the contractor for the whole arrangement. In other words, every bullet, every bomb, every artillery and tank round that's going to be manufactured by this single defence contractor will be chosen by Brussels. The UK will have no say in it. And she's gone on to say that there will be no negotiation. So it's important to point out they're not building an EU army. People have said they're building an EU army. They're not. They're simply taking over all the existing militaries within the frameworks that exist within their member states. And of course, you're quite correct to point out that Britain voted to leave. Britain voted for Brexit. However, what the people didn't realise was when it came to defence and security, that was not part of the arrangement. Theresa May signed that off before anybody could get a chance to analyse what was really going on. Now, the other really important thing here is that this will give them a full political union with tax implications. So that means that the British taxpayer could end up funding a lot of this as if we didn't have enough to worry about. But the bureaucratic arrangements, they're already there. They're ready to go. And the civil servants think that it's going to be some kind of a la carte menu that they can choose what to take part in or what not to. No, it's all
and did they
in.
learn that from COVID? When yeah, right? Okay. That's a silly dream.
Yeah, it is. But the other thing to point out, that there is no technical difficulties in any of this, because these control systems have been built by the Royal Navy to NATO standards. And at the flick of a switch, this can all be transferred across. This is supported by the bureaucrats. This is supported by the civil service, because they think they're going to get to pick and choose. They won't. And I'll just finish off by saying that the person that actually built this system is a former Royal Navy engineer. But in terms of a national veto, because some people have said, well, we'll have a national veto. There's something that the EU are going to try to do. We've got a national veto. Well, Ursula von der Leyen has stated, and it's on the record, and she's basically said there will be no veto in defence and security. So you've got Cameron and Ritchie in there. They've already said to the defence heads of staff, there's no more funding for you. They've been denied in a number of meetings where the defence heads of department have said, look, we need more funding if we're potentially.
Yo, let me get Chief up in here.